Hello and very good morning to you all from Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. My name is Okiti and I am the Managing Director of BusinessDay. Greetings to you wherever it is that you are joining us from. We are delighted here in BusinessDay to welcome you to the second edition of Masters of Marketing. And the theme we're looking at today is standing up and standing out in the attention economy. What we are doing here today builds on the rich exchanges that we had last year, which was the first edition of Masters of Marketing. And the thing we looked at then was pivoting fast, spending slow, how marketing is adapting to shifting realities. So the title of today's webinar actually has a double meaning. At one level, he aspires to attract confirmed marketing leaders, the masters, to mount the rostrum to share their unparalleled insights about what they see is been happening on the marketing landscape. Second, he also seeks to satisfy the audience with in-depth data and fact-based analytical discourse, comparable to only a postgrad level seminar. So some of the issues that we'll be looking at today is around planning, development, execution of marketing strategies and advertising objectives for portfolio of brands, management of the corporate identity and overseeing creative roles, supervision and crafting of communication to stakeholders, hiring of external consultant and agency, working on advertising and PR assignments and campaigns. Also, advising chief executives on trends in customer behavior and expectation as a guide to products and services development. In conceptualizing this webinar, what our task was very simple, and what we intend to do is just ask some simple questions around how do chief marketing officers and senior executives at agency, how do they actually theorize their roles and of course manage the dynamic changes that's constantly happening in the industry. And of course, how are CMOs and executives at agencies delivering on their responsibility and deploying resources. So in this context, all the panels here today, we see a common theme running through the panels that we have put forward here. One is that we see value as becoming increasingly very, very important. That is, what is the value that we are delivering as marketing officers? So brands ignore this at their peril. No brand can afford to ignore value. And of course, running through this panel, you'll be hearing more about how to strengthen and of course, how to concretize values and of course, how to deliver values. So number two also is looking at the customer attention span. Why is it getting shorter? And because it's getting shorter, what more can be done? And of course, it's a very tight and crowded space. So how should brands also make room for themselves? Also, the third thing I believe we'll run through this is also, given what has happened in the last we used to say 1 year, but it's about 18 months now. I mean, looking at what has happened in relation to COVID. So how are brands adjusting to the post-COVID era? I mean, what is happening to marketing budgets? How do you deliver value, especially given tighter and tighter marketing budgets? Also given tighter and tighter customer envelopes. So these, I believe, are the issues that we have brought together experts that have, I mean, well experienced and of course in their fields of marketing, and they'll be shedding lights on this. So before I introduce the first panel, please allow me to recognize our partners and our sponsors this morning. For our sponsors, we are grateful to Mastercard, Desperados by Nigerian Breweries, and of course Urban Shelter for supporting this event this morning. And of course, we have partnered with News Central and JC Decors in order to organize this webinar. So I'm going to introduce you to Marian Ogasieshi, who is going to take over from here. And I believe she will introduce the first panel and, of course, let the insights start rolling. I really do hope, and I hope that this webinar this morning is a time well spent for you, and I hope it gives and delivers the value that you expect. I thank you so very much. Enjoy the webinar. Thank you. Miriam.
Okay. Thank you, beg your pardon, Dr. Okiti, for the introduction. So on the panel today, we will be looking at how brands are spending customer attention wisely. So the very concept of capturing the attention of potential customers conjures that image, an image that marketers are in an arms race to win the minds of potential buyers. So taking the Arsenal metaphor as a starting point, this panel would drill down to understand how marketing departments as well as agencies are rejigging their media spending or their media spend to match the demographics, behavioral, beg your pardon, and spending shifts occurring across various advertising categories. So on the panel today, we'll have discussions around how marketers have adopted new approaches to their creative output. We would also be looking at whether and how the NSAS protests that happened Q4 of last year, how it has altered their perception of youth segment. That's how it has altered the perception of brands on how the youth segment is. And we would also be looking at COVID. How has COVID brought changes in the way that drive, customer engagement, especially during the end of year festive season? Finally, we'll be looking at latest tools and metrics as well as technology that brands are applying, and what new insights they draw out of that. So today on the panel, I'll be introducing my panelists. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Okay, 1 minute, please. Okay, so this is not working, but let's continue. So I'll be introducing the first of them in no particular order, Alero. Alero is a lawyer with over 17 years of strategy development, customer and product portfolio manager in public and media relationship, as well as integrated marketing. So Alero has worked in some of Nigeria's leading financial service providers, which includes but not limited to United Bank of Africa, UBA, Union Bank, where she has led marketing strategies. She's also an alumna of the University of Northumbria, Newcastle, and University of Essex. Alero is at the front line of deepening marketing communications, stakeholder management, customer experience, and market penetration for the brands in the Nigerian insurance market. So meet Alero Ladipo. She's the executive head, marketing and customer experience, Old Mutual, Nigeria. We also have Yinka Adebayo, who is the executive director of media investment, Omnicom Group, West and Central Africa. So Yinka has over 20 years of experience in the field of marketing. He's an alumnus of the Lagos Business School and the University of Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State. He is also a full member of the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, an ESCO member of the Media Independent Association of Nigeria, MEPAN, and a faculty member of Alpha Beta Media Academy. Finally, we have Sandra Makri. Sandra Makri is the Senior Media Brand and PR Manager of Nigerian Breweries. She's a multi-skilled business leader with 12+ years experience in the FMCG industry. She has provided oversight, media excellence management of 2 West African countries within the Heineken International Group. Sandra is an alumna of the Lagos Business School. She's the chairman of the mainland chapter of NIM. She has cross-functional experience in HR, sales, and marketing. Sandra's hobbies are traveling, lawn tennis, and watching movies. Join me in welcoming the panelists. So before we go on for today, please send your questions by visiting www.slido.com. using the Slido code, hashtag MOM2021. Hashtag MOM2021. So every question should be sent, indicating the name of the panelist to whom the question is directed at. Thank you. So we'll start today with Alero Ladipo. So Alero, a few months ago, there was a report from the PwC, a report titled COVID-19 and the Nigerian Insurance Industry. So I quote, for insurers, the fallout from the COVID-19 outbreak includes a surge in health, travel, and business interruption claims. So pressures on sales from reduced business activities and less use of face-to-face channel. The gathering economic slowdown emanating from the pandemic is also driving interest rates even lower and increasing credit risk exposures from businesses facing possible default. Now, this raises the possibility of regulators asking for extraordinary solvency tests to ensure insurers can withstand the immediate and knock-on impact. So this appears like a perfect storm for your brand, even as it celebrated its 175th anniversary sometime last year. That's Old Mutual. On one side, policyholders want comfort that Old Mutual will be there for them, right? And on the other side, on the regulators' side, yes. So they want this reassurance that the insurer has adequate capital to withstand any shock and spikes in claims payout. So last year, the organization, Old Mutual, launched his online, I think, make a claim feature on his website. So where they allowed prompt payment of claims within 48 hours. So my question is, how else is the marketing function playing a part in communicating those qualities around dependability, around speedy processing of claims, and also trust? So how are they communicating what has been like a trying period on those qualities? So qualities around dependability and speedy processing of claims, as well as trust.
Thank you very much, Marian. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of the panel. It's a very interesting topic, and it's also very timely as well. I think on the question in particular, one thing that we have in insurance is that we are in the business of paying claims. Insurance in general is the opportunity to safeguard certain investments that you've had, whether it's in physical, business, your home. And what has happened over the COVID period, what has happened over the NSAS period, has shown people that even though they may be making the right investments in businesses, in family, in assets, they do need to be protective of those assets. And it's been very vocal. Last year, we had a seminar, a webinar on claims, clarifying claims. So the first thing I would say is there's a misconception in the market around claims payments. And one thing that as a marketing person and as a communicator that we need to do is ensure that people understand how they can make their claims, what kind of claim can they make, and just provide general comfort. Marketing is in the business of creating trust between an organization and the individual that's out there, the customer. And whatever it is that we do, we ensure that we create that connection where a customer can either air their views. So one thing that was also quite important to us is to ensure that customers could engage with us without any kind of physical contact. Now, a number of people would say, oh, that's normal. But for some industries, that is something that we've had to heighten. I mean, one statistic is just from my own organization, we've moved all our online, most of our engagements with customers, I would say about 85% of them are now being done online. It's just the convenience and being able to give the customer the reassurance. Because one research that we did recently, that asked customers, what's the most important thing to you in choosing either a financial institution of any kind, whether it is banking or whether it is insurance. And the first thing that came out was not product, it was actually trust. Then what was followed by that was service. And those were the two top requirements that were coming out of a customer. So for us, it's about creating that convenience and being very transparent about what our back-end processes are doing. Demystify the view. I think that's the critical thing. Demystify the view so that the customer can understand what they're entitled to in simplified language. And that also involves marketing professionals getting involved in the back-end process. Sometimes marketing professionals sort of sit at the forefront and they feel that all they are required to do is communicate. But what we're finding now as marketing people, as marketing executives, is that you need to get involved in the back-end process. It's so important because you find in a lot of organizations, the back-end process is not connected to the front end. So whatever it is that you're stating out there, whatever press release or platform that you're putting out there, if it's not connecting to the dots, then you have a big problem because what you've done there is that you've broken the trust of the customer.
Oh,
but
okay.
that's where we start.
Oh, thank you, Alero. So Sandra, can we see your video, Sandra? So my next question is to you, actually, Sandra. So Nigerian breweries is arguably the leading consumer brand in Nigeria as far as the youth segment is concerned. It's arguably though. So before October 2020, our youth, especially the late millennials and the Gen Zers, were perceived as focused on entertainment, leisure, and largely apolitical, actually. So in a few short weeks, all that changed generally. So in Nigeria, brands stay well clear of sensitive social and political issues. Yet we saw cases of some brands being called out for not supporting the NSAS protests last year. And a few were also celebrated for also supporting the NSAS protests. Okay, so further away in the US, many global brands came out strongly to support the BLM movement, which is the Black Lives Matter. So even Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, jumped on the fray. So Twitter also subsequently they created a tight fit emoji, and the emoji was draped with a Nigerian flag to support the movement with the help of Dorsey, of course. And also the Feminist Coalition the Feminist Coalition group managed to raise about $150,000 in Bitcoin donations, also through the help of the CEO of Twitter or his support. Now, in what sociologists and political scientists are already calling the decade of discord, where more social protests like those of 2020 will become a norm. How do you think Nigerian brands should navigate the waters where no comments may no longer cut it?
Good morning, and thank you, Miriam, for the excellent introduction earlier. Thank you for moderating this discourse, and to my co-panel members, Yinka and Alero. Pleased to meet you, and I'm indeed honored to be sharing this stage with you. And to BusinessDay, thank you for having me. BusinessDay has been a partner and a trusted news source in Nigeria for a very long time, and I'm indeed opportune to be part of this panel. Thank you for the question, Miriam. In today's context, there is definitely a growth for brand-driven advocacy, and more brands are definitely taking a stand. Basically, we want to see how brands are raising awareness for social issues that bring greater value to the society. And of course, brands have their iconic status, they have creative skills in-house, and they can help use this to drive the public agenda. We all know that with traditional authority figures, they are greatly losing their influences, and companies and brands that consumers and customers do have trust for, they have a great opportunity to take on some responsibility to help shape the narratives of communities and basically make the public a better space. I would like to take an extract from a book on brands on a mission by Dr. Miriam Sidibe. She used to work at Unilever. And the extract basically says, the strongest brands stand for something bigger than the products they sell. They stand for social movement that benefits society. And something that is very critical for brands to ask themselves before navigating these waters is your brand ready for that level of social conversation? Is your brand able to inspire consumers? Are you able to draw rival brands to the table and have conversations? Are you able to engage partners from the public and private sectors? Because you must remember that the conversations on social movements is not about the brand, it is about the people. I'll quickly share 3 key things that I think brands should take note of when they want to, of course, commence on this type of journey. First of all, the brand should strictly adhere to its values. Provide value first. They must remember that it's about providing value first. And brands need to remember the cardinal rule of advertising, which means it is not about the brand, but it's about the people that you want to add value to and the people you want to serve. Value, it's all about creating values-based connections with your consumers. And a brand should not be just focused on throwing out social media tweets, creating communications, and just hitting the foot without remembering to hit the spot, basically. The second thing that I think is important is that brands need to attract partners to the cause. Don't go on this journey by yourself. By enlisting the help of a wide range of partners and ordinary people, you can definitely achieve some goals. Be open to discussions with governments and community leaders. NGOs and consumers themselves are very critical stakeholders in this. So brands should not take this role alone and should not commence the journey by themselves without remembering to carry along the people that are within the value chain of the communication. And lastly, it is very important for the brands to start working internally. I mean, you can't be a company and a brand and you're speaking about a social issue, and even within your own company, you do not engage your own employees about these kinds of conversation. So any social movement from a brand should definitely start from within its own office walls. It should be starting from its people. It has to be simple and creative enough for its own employees to want to be engaged in it and want to, because these employees will also help you sustain the engagement. And there are several examples of companies and brands that are taking advantage of this. I mean, brands and companies more and more are conversant with the fact that their own employees are also customers, they are consumers. These social causes and social movement issues concern them as well as it concerns the public. So yes, that's the third thing from me. Brands should definitely start working from internal. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. Inka, how are you doing?
Very well, Miriam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we meet again on another panel.
Nice
Okay, so in a recent interview, you touched 3 points. So first, that the pandemic and protocols around social distancing has actually brought out the best in agencies, right? Secondly, you also mentioned that brands can no longer take customers for granted. And you also spoke a bit about technology deployment, about that being the key differentiator going forward. Please, could you elaborate on those insights? So that will also help us understand the context of your point of view.
Yeah, well, I mentioned the fact that you started off by the issue of
the pandemic and
the world changing, and of course, sorry, say what? The pandemic has brought us. Yeah, first of all, let me thank you for having us, and BusinessDay for creating this platform. Is a good opportunity for cross-fertilization of ideas where we all feed off each other, and that's the best way to go as we continue to navigate the uncertainty of the current realities. Yeah, that being said, talking about brands, really, you find out that you see the truth of the matter is that nobody envisaged what happened last year, the issue of the pandemic. So you don't have a manual or a template that you can defer to. No business school was prepared for globally to say I have a template to navigate it. So everybody had to struggle. So we've always laid claim in marketing committees to say, hey, disruption, we need to disrupt, we need to create wave and all of that. We all got disrupted. And what that did was to send us back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Two things, like I said during the last session, it happened. Some people saw the cup as half full, some saw it as half empty. How we all see it depends on how we travel. For those who saw it as half full, meaning they are headed to the top, and we can see some companies, I stand to be corrected, really, they succeeded in making profits that they've never made before. During the pandemic, some people actually had the effrontery to even launch products, and that product not only excelled, they are still surviving it tomorrow. Unfortunately, too, the pandemic actually led to the death of a couple of other brands. So really, it was a major disruption. less. So, and of course, that means bringing out the best from agencies boils down to the fact that many of the agencies were forced to go back to the drawing board to re-strategize, to repackage, to rethink how they want to approach their brand. And those who were able to recover first eventually took over the shine of others and led all the way in the market. Some brands, equally, incidentally for us in the market communication world, the eyeballs that we normally pay millions to achieve were there at home waiting to be tapped. But how many brands were visible to tap into it? But some were bold during that pandemic period. They were not only visible, they were equally able to identify and empathize with their audience. And for you, they grab a whole lot. So agencies were forced to put on their thinking cap and re-strategize and think for the brand. And those who did a good job of it, of course, they will have a whole lot to show for it now. So talking about the other issue of the consumer not taken for granted. Yeah, I think we all saw it. Alero alluded to it. I think Sandra equally said that much. People are buying value. If your value, and value, nobody can deny value. One's value is on the table. The blind will see and the deaf will hear. And that value proposition is something that cannot and should not be compromised. For a long time, most of the consumers have always been passive. Whatever we give the debt to them. Now, consumers are beginning to ask critical questions. What are you giving to me? How are you going to relate with me? How do you engage me? How do you interact with me? How do you even prove? And more importantly, how do you reward me? And I dare say that the pandemic period has offered us the brand to really stand out to be counted, meaning that was the pain period for virtually everyone. So for some brands, it might interest you that they not only created market, they equally took on the bold move by reducing their price. So rather than create a market and cash in on it, they even reduce price, just a way of empathizing with people that this is a pain period. Let's identify with you, because if you empathize with me during my pain period, immediately once that pain is over, I can see you as a brand that can be taken for the long haul. And I think that came to play very, very clearly. And that is one thing. So brands are beginning to have some fundamental questions to say, look, how do you relate with me? How do you interact with me? How do you engage me? Then how do you reward me? I think these are food for thought for the brands. They're talking about differentiators. Without doubt, like I said earlier, the pandemic is one experience that we never envisaged. Everybody. So two things are, it was a whirlwind. It's either you stay in front of it, you get crushed, or you blend with it and flow with it and come back and still have your head turning in the right direction. And I think for most of the agencies, no brainer. Technology has been with us forever. And I think at very different forum, I've actually said that one of the things, if there's any country that has benefited the most from the pandemic, I think Nigeria happens to be one of them. It's only in Nigeria and somebody will call you, Yinka, are you at home? I'm coming to greet you. What have you done via the phone? You greeted me, but here we don't like that communal living and all of that. COVID has come to the place to discipline us that you don't need to go out except it's extremely necessary. We've been overly wasteful. Look at the session we are having. Before now, BusinessDay will be thinking of hiring a hall, get everybody here, but everybody, we are all in our different offices and event is going on and we're all interacting. This technology has been with us forever. Have we been able to use this? No, but with COVID, all of us are forced to rethink. And here we are today. So going forward, technology will be a major differentiator for brand. How you are able to key into the modern world? How you are able to drive technology? How you are able to use technology to drive your sales, to drive your engagement with audience, to drive your interaction with consumers, to drive your reward mechanism for consumers, and it can only get better. I dare say if there's any brand that is still existing and you are not on online for people to make purchases and access your products, I think you've got another thing coming. So, like Seth Gordon rightly said, you need to learn to see for you to be seen. Don't learn to see opportunities, you are most learning to be seen. Thank you.
Okay, so I want you to talk a bit about, you spoke a bit about technology. So I want us to talk a bit about technology as well as data. So everyone agrees that analytics and big data are redefining how brands plan their campaigns, spending and strategy. So yet, you see most executives whose companies have invested in analytics rather, and gone as far as hiring talent internally, they still confess that analytics have not significantly contributed to the organization's pool of insights as a decision-making input. So in other words, while companies collect a lot of data, they still struggle to extract strategic insights that can actually apply towards shaping business decisions. So likewise, for content marketers as well, you notice that they have a system in place to collect realms of data and are yet to still cross that bridge to leverage that information for the benefit of both their brands and their customers or consumers. So data and technology are there, but it's not being fully tapped. So the promise has not been delivered. So I want you to explain that contradiction from your experience working with brands, right? Are you aware of any company that is getting it right in this regard, and what are they doing differently? Inka.
Well, I dare say this is not new. Data has always been there forever.
Yep.
Okay, everybody has access to it. How you use it will determine how well you're able to take advantage of it. You see, and like I always said, there's always a story behind the numbers. The number will show you the direction. How you travel is ultimately left to you. If I have the same data as you, we're not going to use it the same way. So ultimately, we're not going to end up with the same result. So when you look at data, there's always a story behind the data. Are you able to tell the story? If you don't understand that data is useless to you. There's always a story behind the number. Until you dig down to understand the story behind those numbers, you are most unlikely to make meaning out of it and be able to use it effectively. And you don't need to have that competency. There are some people who are able to read meanings to numbers, because for all you care, you have access to MPS data. It shows us clearly that number one written radio in Nigeria is the FRCN, Kokonu Wero. But that Kokonu Wero, does it fit the brand word of your brand? These are people who say, because yes, data shows Kokonu Wero has the number one radio station, then you put all your adverts in there. You need to now read the order. Who are the audience listening to this station? How are they listening to it? Does it fit the profile of my brand? Those are the stories that you begin to say, hey, it's number one, but I dare say I'd rather pitch myself with number 3 or number 4, because that is where a large chunk of the audience I seek to address speaks to. And I think that's where most people get it wrongly. You see data, you just latch in on it, and you take it on as a hook and sinker. People, and you need, as marketers, we need to be very careful. We need to know that there's a clear difference between what people say and what people do. And as a marketer, until you're able to unveil what they do rather than what they say, you are most unlikely to make a success of it. So I think for those who have been able to hold their heads and people have been able to see, who are able to read the numbers, make meaning out of it, and equally be able to tell the stories behind those numbers, and equally be able to use it to advance it within the context and relevance for their own brand. And we have examples, really. We don't have brands that, so without mentioning name, we can see clearly some brands, and like I said earlier, while some brands are opening up, a whole lot of others are closing up. The challenge we have now is the fact that you either innovate or die. There's no alternative to it. And the others are getting more discerning. They are getting more discerning, they're getting more choosy. And you can't blame them. Yeah, we always say consumer is king, consumer is king. I think that statement comes to the fore even more now. When your disposable income is really challenged, you need to think twice. Unless I see you as somebody who gives value, for me to dispense my hard-earned income to you, you need to sweat to get it. And that's where we draw the line. Thank you. Unfortunately, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's me, Miriam. Maybe you are okay. You're muted. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Inka. Alero, how are you? Okay, so
very well. I like some of Inka's points.
So there's an ambiguous Chinese quote that says, "May you live in interesting times." So that has become a double-edged reality for many executives that are charged with managing their company's images, portfolio of brands, and marketing strategy, just like you. So considering your career span, that's in Nigeria and South Africa, while you have also worked in banking, you've worked in consulting, investment management, and telecoms, right? I'm correct, Alero, right? Okay, so yes, in the midst of all of this turmoil of the past year, what are the 3 most important lessons you would pick out from the noise if you were asked for advice from someone, say someone who has just been appointed for their first managerial role in marketing? What would be your 3 most important lessons, advice?
I think, thank you, Marian. I think for me, marketing, people need to understand, first of all, the role of marketing has changed. Managerial roles in marketing are no longer endpoints, and they need to understand it's not an advertising role. There's a quote that says, the best marketing does not, it's not the end. It actually is around the whole continuum. So what does that mean? If you're being appointed as a marketer today, you really need to get involved. The days of, everything has been done and marketing is called into the piece to come and puts some ribbons and bows and then engage agency, and then agency tries to put something together, and then there's some strategy that comes in. Those days are no longer here, they're gone. So one thing that is quite important, understand that marketing owns the whole process. I think if I go back to what I think Yinka and also Sandra said, there's one piece, there's the internal piece, there's the piece of understanding the customer, and then marketing straddles both of those pieces. And you need to be at the center of every conversation. That's one thing I would tell people that are going into a marketing role. I'll use a quick example. Imagine if you want to launch a product and your customer service is not working properly, right? And you go out and you make a promise. And then the customers come back onto social media and said, we tried this, but it didn't work. What you have done as being the custodian of the brand and the custodian of the promise is that you've broken it with the customer, because you didn't put an eye on those internal processes, or that your IT is down. Or that even from an example will simply be even your managing director not being aware of the details of the process. You need to be the voice in the room that says, hang on, you're not ready. Because I try and connect the dots for this particular product, I can't tell the market that you should make this promise. So that's the first thing I would say to marketers going into a role. You are not an end point. You need to be there at the beginning, and you need to be the golden thread that runs through the whole process. So position yourself properly. Do not position yourself as an advertising guru or as a social media guru. The second thing I would tell people is understand data. We're talking about data today, and you're right. Data analytics, nice buzzwords. When the whole COVID thing started, data is more important than gold and all of those things. You need to understand the data of your industry and understand how that data applies to your industry. Do not take data in general and expect that you're going to be able to formulate a story based on that. We spoke earlier on, you mentioned demographics, you mentioned psychographics, you mentioned, and then obviously there's also the platform data. A lot of marketers now are taking data as just a bunch of information and just trying to plug into it. You're not breaking it down, deciphering it, and then ensuring that you apply it accordingly. That's also very, very important. That's the second thing. And then help your organization also understand the data. You understanding the data is not enough, because when you work in a marketing role, you're almost the focal point that allows other key stakeholders within your organization understand how to apply the data, because their minds are very much on, probably let's use the word reach. They think that if you reach 1 million, you get 1 million. No. Just because a certain platform can give you 1 million reach, it may be like the radio station. I can't pronounce the radio station that Yinka mentioned, but it's that could give you wide, but it's not your target audience. And you need to be that person that before a decision is made, they're going there to ask, okay, we got this data. What is this data doing? Also, what are you doing with the data that you already have in your organization? Because sometimes marketers look a lot outward, but there's a lot of information inward. And just by breaking it down, understanding your data, cleaning up your data, you can actually start to see a trend that you can use to build your brand further. The third thing I would say is when you need the experts, because I always say that you see marketing CMOs, marketing professionals are always viewed as generalists, right? And sometimes as a generalist, they feel that they can make certain decisions, they can do certain things, they can almost know everything. But I always say marketing is a profession. And if let's take medicine, for example, they're general practitioners and they are specialists. Recognize when you need a specialist, because in this time, some of us that are going into the roles of marketing, there's certain trends that we can keep up to date as much as possible, but understand the times when you need the help. And I think that's where the partnerships with agencies are no longer vendors, they're partners. You have to start to see it like that. You know, you went through my career cycle, and that's an evolution that I've seen with working with agencies. They are now more or less your partners, because if they don't succeed, you don't succeed. Yeah, it's not about paying a retainer anymore. It's about value. So those are the three things. Know that you're the golden thread that runs through your whole process. You're not an endpoint. So if you're going into that job thinking you're just going to put up pretty pictures, no, it doesn't work that way anymore. Understand the data within your organization, understand the data outside of your organization. Learn to tell the story, because you need to simplify it, tell the story for the stakeholders within your organization so you can buy into what it is that you're trying to achieve, that change you're trying to achieve. Because one thing that is critical for customers now is simplicity. Another thing is that customers are very much, they are engrossed in stories. They no longer want to be thrown at with different kinds of communication. So understand your data and be able to carry all your stakeholders along. It's so important. The role of a marketer now is wider, is bigger, it's more than, you know, I'll get an agency and I'll do a bit of work and I'll do this, I'll do that. If you don't understand your industry, you don't understand your internal stakeholders, you don't understand your operational processes, you're going to run into problems. And then also pick the right partners. And when I say partners, if it's agencies, if it's even if it's nonprofits, pick the right partners, because you will need their assistance over time. Thank you.
Miriam, your mic is still
on mute.
I'm always forgetting, sorry about that. So can we talk a bit about Alero still, about marketing spend? So explain your marketing spend at the start of second half of last year and what it is as we enter the second part of 2020, that's H2, half of the year for 2021. What has changed? And when I say what has changed, I'm talking about, okay, what kind of cuts in have you experienced in your marketing budget? So where have your cuts been? Where have they been most drastic and where have they been softer? To just shed more light on also your management thinking behind those adjustments. Do you expect a return of pre-COVID spending ratio anytime soon? Or just a brief story around your marketing spend generally.
I think in general, when it's come to marketing spend, yes, the cuts have occurred, and the cuts have occurred a lot from I would say from a traditional form of marketing. It's been softer on the online. I think primarily because, again, when you look at the ROI on some of these platforms such as outdoor and even newspaper, the trends have been over time that it's harder to measure as well. However, you do need to also, in general, look at where your brand is and what your brand is trying to achieve when deciding where your cuts occur. So for us as a brand, where we were looking to up our game was really in that online space. There was a lot of positioning that needed to be done around just insurance in general. I'm sure everybody that's on this platform will agree with me that as one of the financial pillars of financial services, insurance is still, you still require a lot of engagement, understanding, putting out information out there about it, because a lot of people, it's not as simple as opening an account. So that was where we decided to focus on. So the most of the cuts were on the traditional forms of marketing. And the truth is that over time, because we focus more on digital, we're seeing traction coming through from that spend. So we're seeing the return on our investment, the ability for people to transact. And it's easier for us to just measure, okay, how many from the impressions, the whole funnel that has to do with marketing, what has come through to the website, what kind of conversion rates. And we're seeing that also come through as well, in just in general. Another key piece that we also had some softer a softer landing was also on stakeholder engagement. Even though stakeholder engagement is not, I would say, we moved away from it being a physical stakeholder engagement, but needed to make sure that we had constant online stakeholder engagement, and that meant that we needed to innovate. So having webinars, having trainings, doing things for key stakeholders that we have was actually very important. And it's also, we're seeing the traction because the business is getting bigger year on year. So we couldn't just sit silent and say because it was COVID period, we would stop doing that. We just had to change the way we were doing it. And to some extent, it reduced the cost, but it kept the connection between us and our stakeholders and us and our customers. I think the area that has probably suffered the most from our budgets, and I think it continues to just suffer slightly, is that traditional forms of media. I would say press and outdoor in particular. The online press presence has become more important to us than the physical newspaper, which is I think it's just standard trends. So that's where, from a spend, that's where we are. However, I don't think to a large extent it has impacted our positioning. But I do see brands that require that presence still investing in some of the traditional forms of media, because certain things have happened in their industry. And in order to capture people fully, they need to be in certain places. So it's not a one size fits all, but you have to look at your industry, you have to look at your company, you have to understand what your strategy is for that particular year, and build your budget based on what your strategy is for that particular year. I think understanding that, yes, the customer wallet is smaller, so the ability for your business to make money is also stretched. So those are some of the factors that I would put on the table. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Alera. Thank you. So I'll allow you to take a cup of coffee while I engage Sandra a bit on still spend, but now a little bit around productivity as well. So Sandra, a global IT research and advisory company, Gartner, recently released its Cmo Spend Survey. Okay, so it showed that that as budgets have become tighter, up to a third of marketing work has shifted from agencies to in-house. So what has been your experience at Nigerian breweries in terms of how much work agencies handle today versus the end of 2019? And at that, the kind of work they are doing for the companies now versus in 2019?
Thanks for the question, Miriam. I mean, fairly within Nigerian breweries, I would say not much has changed in terms of the ratio of work in-house versus agencies, particularly because in our industry, we value a lot the outside-in experiences that our agencies are able to bring on board to help us formulate some of the brand campaign messaging that we put out to the public. So not a lot has changed in-house. We still see the same ratio of work in-house versus with agencies. I mean, Nigerian breweries has the opportunity to work with some of the best agency partners in Nigeria, and we still going forward maintain status quo in terms of work upload. But to your point around the data that is seen in the global space, yes, I have seen some of this trend myself. I think more and more organizations want to build in-house capabilities. As you know, many organizations also want to build in-house talent. So this gives them an opportunity to have their own employees at the forefront of taking decisions. It helps them speed up bureaucracies. It also helps because these employees, they know the pain points of the business more. I'd also like to allude to some of the things Alera mentioned, where she said some traditional forms of media are typically quite hard to measure in terms of ROI. But as a business leader internally, you know what your budget is, you know what your KPIs are, you know what you want to achieve in terms of ROI. That puts you in the driving seat to ensuring that you're taking the best decisions in-house to manage those processes end to end, as opposed to if you were with an agency and you probably think that the agency would not have the right level of patience and commitment to helping you deliver on those ROI results. I think generally with all the other agencies that we work with as well, yes, a few shifts have happened in the industry with some companies taking on a bit of the work and allowing the agencies to play more that expertise role, while in-house they also develop younger people to be able to do this job. You would also notice that some organizations that have taken this route have had to backtrack. Yeah. I know a few organizations, I don't want to mention names, that went in and had their digital agencies in-house, but over the course of a few years, they had to backtrack and then give it back to agencies to partner. Yes, so there are pros and cons of each side of the divide, but I think it's important for agencies, for companies to check what their strategy is and what kind of capabilities do they want to build. If they have those capabilities in-house and they are able to grow it, fantastic, they can go with it. But otherwise, like Alero said, let us always rely on the partner, on the experts. Many agency partners are experts on this topic. So in Nigerian bureaus, we have relied on experts. Thank you. We can't hear you, Miriam.
Still talking on productivity, Yinka, I would like to hear you talk a bit around productivity with the agencies. So with all the changes in the air, right? So it would be interesting to hear how agencies themselves are changing organizationally to stay competitive, of course, and also serve companies or their clients better. And basically just survive, you know. So do you think that these changes are long overdue and here to stay, or an ad hoc sort of adjustment? So let's dig deeper. How does what we are seeing today differ from how agencies adjusted in the aftermath of the 2016 recession, and going further back to the shrinking of businesses after the Nigerian stock market crash and banking sector crisis of 2009. So how does what we are seeing today differ from that, basically?
Interesting. We're talking about productivity in the spirit of social distancing and keeping distance. I don't know what others do, but I can tell you clearly what we have done in our own space. And that's the fact that we succeeded in moving ahead with the full deployment of technology. And that has been cost effective to us. Critical questions have been asked to say, in terms of saving costs, do we really need offices as an agency? How many of our clients do visit our physical structure that we call office? Many of the businesses get done these days. I know this year, we practically have won an account online. I've not made the MD. We commissioned the job online. We ran a campaign for 6 months online. Payment got paid online. Media owners got paid online. We've not even seen each other. That is the way to go. The difference between the changes we are seeing now and what we've ever seen before, like I said earlier, this particular one, nobody has the manual. No country has experienced COVID-19 before, so there's no manual, there's no template to develop. So it depends on how well you are able to reach it based on the peculiarity of your own situation. Don't look at the other people's question mark, because if you provide an answer based on other people's question mark, you are going to fail and fail woefully. Look at your own context and fine-tune things in that rhyme. I'm talking about clients too. I think to a large extent, a couple of the clients who are equally looking for agencies who are nimble, who are able to think on their feet. There is no time to shed time. You must be able to be spot on at every point in time. And the best way to do it is probably to be on the ball. Every opportunity now is an opportunity to conduct research. And like Ale rightly said, there are a couple of companies, they are sitting on gold mines. What they are looking out for outside is actually data they have in-house. But oftentimes for many of us, we just copy what others are doing. People are buying data, you buy data, at the end of the day, it means nothing to you. But even some of the things in now, what are your consumers saying? How are they responding? What is their need? The insurance industry, I think I was amazed when I was looking at one of the foreign stations during the period of the pandemic. And you know what they did? They ran a commercial that said, because we know that your vehicle, you are not using it as you used to use it before, you are not going out as you used to go out. So the premium that you are paying for this year automatically covers you for next year, more like a 50% discount. That is what I call empathy. An organization that is able to bring value to the table and bring in empathy, they will really survive to the long haul. And clearly for us as an agency, we don't see ourselves as just a media agency, or it's all about marketing. It's all about saying, hey guys, you have the challenge here. My role as a consultant is to advise you. I don't necessarily need to be the one to provide that service to you. If you have people who have the competencies, please engage them and let them, but it builds on me as somebody who is on the ball and who understands the industry to guide you in the right direction to say, I think there's a PR challenge here. We've seen cases where even for us as a media agency, a client has actually entrusted us with the PR job because we gave the idea to say, hey, you need to do this. And they say, good, but if the idea is coming from you, please go ahead and execute. So there's actually, if we can get into a point where the line is being blocked, most of the clients did this because whatever has kept your clients to remain sleepless overnight must keep you as an agency not to even sleep 24/7, because most clients are really challenged right now. And as an agency, you must be seen to be able to go the extra mile to deliver amazing value to the client in such a way that they feel, wow, you are really upping and living for the brand. And I think it's important, and that's the way to go for the agency. So the changes we are seeing now is quite different from what we've ever seen before. You mentioned the issue of banking crisis and all of that. We knew what happened. We were able to respond. So we didn't know that the pandemic was going to come. Nobody. So everybody was thinking about the country that we normally refer to, the city that never sleeps, is New York. New York slept, is not, and even dreamt during pandemic. So what are we talking about? So it's an interesting time. So we just need to put on our thinking cap and make sure that the game has changed and it will continue to change. Change is the only thing constant anyway. We must be ready and ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So one last question to Alero before we begin to take questions from the audience. So Yinka spoke a bit about productivity in terms of office space, online, virtual partnerships with their clients and all. So let's move on to talent as well. And this is to you, Alero. So in terms of sourcing, retaining and refining talent and getting the best out of it, as businesses have shrunk, many companies have also had to let go of employees, especially those in roles that do not directly generate revenue, right? So marketing departments have also not been exempted from the court. So in the progressive recovery that we are seeing right now, and as businesses start to pick up again, so one expects that hiring will recommence, but with all the new and emerging demands on marketing departments, especially the craving for deeper insights and extending orthodoxy, that digital is the path to customer intimacy. How are you tooling your team to deliver? Alero.
Okay, thank you. And it's a very pertinent question, because yes, times are changing and nobody has the manual for it. But what we're seeing or what we're experiencing in-house, how we're tooling people, is that we almost need to start tooling everybody. You know, digital data, they're the nice catchphrases, but understanding what that is also very important. So one thing that is critical is that all your internal stakeholders also need to get involved. So actually training people all the way from the board to all the ExCo members to staff members based on their different understanding levels. But if I speak specifically to the team, the marketing team, apart from having a good understanding with digital, one thing that's critical, and that's why, you know, sometimes, I don't know, from a career point of view, we've gone through phases where when budgets need to be cut, they come to marketing. And sometimes I feel that, or what the insights I've gotten is that it's a lack of understanding of what you are cutting. You're cutting what can help you produce, and not because it's an advertising spend. So one of the key things or key characteristics that a marketing person needs to understand is, how do they communicate? And this might sound very simple, but stakeholder communication and management is so important. Understanding your business. People may take it for granted, but it is something that requires training and upskilling to achieve. And the only way you can do that is by understanding the business that you're in, speaking the business language. I've spent most of my career in financial institutions, and I realized over time that the only way I could get them to listen was by speaking numbers and speaking the technical language that they understand. In another industry, it may be slightly different, so that they understand, so that they get your importance and the role that you play. So I'm not going to list out a whole bunch of different trainings that are happening. But for me, it's more about how do you set up coaching and mentoring for people for cross functions in the business with marketing is very important. So I don't want a marketing person coached or mentored by another marketing person. I want a marketing person coached or mentored by a business person. That's how I make them their capability, their capacity and their capability. That's how I increase it. And yes, there's the technical skill. There's a skill on digital that they also need to learn. But what I need them to learn is not to know every single thing about it. What I need them to understand is the broad view so that they can tap into it and be able to communicate it properly in the business language, in the language of the business. So those are some of the things that are very, very important. Also, allowing the marketing teams to go in and be fully part of business conversations. So one thing that I do is that my team members go and represent the department in different business meetings. Yeah. Because that's the only way that first they can get an understanding, and that's the only way that you can also get the exposure for marketing. So marketing is supposed to be one core pillar of it is PR, but you almost need to make sure you're managing your own PR properly in an organization. It's so important. I think we take it for granted. So that for me is where what I would say. I mean, unfortunately, yes, there's been the trend of losing people, and in some organizations, like us, they've actually kept people, but the role has changed, and people need to appreciate and understand that the role has changed. So I will only speak from a marketing perspective. Yes, understand the trends so that if you're questioned, you have the answers. But that's your stakeholder management ability. Read about it. Emotional intelligence, those skills is what is really going to keep you going. And that's how we can help as leaders in the industry, because that's how you connect the dots between what's out in the market, what's in your organization, and be able to communicate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Alera. So I have a question from our audience. And the first one reads, in an area where you have so many competitors, what can one do to be outstanding? Yinka?
In an area where one has competition, what can one do to be outstanding? Is to think out of the box. Do the usual thing in an unusual way. There's nothing new under the sun, but there's always a different thing to do it. There's always a different way to do things.
It's nothing new. It's not.
Can you hear me? And they should.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
That person should bear in mind, in the competitive world, nobody is going to keep quiet for you to be heard. You need to learn how to raise your voice. That's just a simple antidote. Thank you.
Yinka, I think we've lost Yinka there.
Madam, I'm still here.
Okay, Alero. The second question is for you. It says, hi, Alero, how do you manage with customers in far remote areas without online tools for your product awareness?
It's okay. So it's interesting because I had this conversation.
Okay. I thought I lost you. Oh, sorry.
No, I had this conversation yesterday.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me? Can I go ahead?
Yeah, I think you can go ahead.
I think Marianne is.
Marianne is having a network issue.
Hello, Yinka.
Marianne, can I go ahead? I think I got your question.
Okay.
Okay, let me go ahead with the question. I think one thing that's real that you need to do for regional where there's no online is that there are other forms of engaging. And you need to look at the area that you want to focus on. You need to look at the target audience. You also need to look at the language in which you're going to communicate in. So online is not the solution for everybody, especially when you look at your product. So again, let's not get into a mode where you disregard every other thing and think that online is the solution to everything because COVID has hit. There are still areas where the traditional forms of communication is key. There are still areas where you need to be able to engage the customer on a one-on-one basis. And you find that in some regional areas, that is what you need. You need to be on specific radio platforms. You need to have engaged specific influencers that are not necessarily on social media, because sometimes people use the word influencer and they think it's only online influencers. There are influencers in community, there's influencers in regions that you can use to spread your message. So for me, those are the areas that you look at. You never take a one-size-fits-all strategy for a country, for any country, or depending on how far your reach wants to be. If we start right at the beginning, you look at your customer, your demography. The demography of the customer will look at the location. From demography, you see the age. There's certain things you see, male, female. Those things they're not buzzwords. You use them in some cases. You may need to do limited face-to-face because that's what is required to engage them. We need to understand that COVID, the challenge with Nigeria was that COVID shut an economy down that works almost on a daily basis to keep the economy running, because there's a huge part of our individuals in our economy that earn their money daily. And those individuals needed to get out in order to continue earning. And the way you reach those individuals is to meet them at their place of engagement, at their place of work. And then also use your partnerships. Use partnerships either with the telcos, use partnerships with the banks, use partnerships with anybody else to also get your message across. We're innovating every day, but that's my short answer. There's no, we're sort of getting into this phase where digital is the solution for everything. It's not. It's very important. And I would even say right now, it's probably about 70%. But let's not forget that 30% that you need to do that still requires traditional forms of engagement, traditional forms of influence. Yeah. That's what I would say to answer that question. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Alera. So please send in your questions by visiting www.slido.com using the Slido code #MOM2021. So while you send your questions, please indicate the name of the panelist to whom the question is directed at. A third question is also to Alera. So they say, how do you manage, it reads, how do you manage situations where there is need to survey or inspect a proposed risk physically?
Okay, so this is particularly for in the insurance industries.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So what we've done, there are two ways we've done it. So especially when it comes to the claims process, we've allowed customers to activate some incidents online by sending through pictures and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, for risks that need to be surveyed prior to the engagement, prior to the actually taking on the policy, we still actually need to go out and physically survey the risk. You can't, even if it depending on the premium size, the actual asset base, those are some of the things we look at when we need to, okay, should we go out and view? Is a video sufficient? Is a picture sufficient? As the threshold reduces, you can also start to use online to deliver. However, there's some businesses that, to be honest, we will take the necessary COVID precautions, but we'll still assess the risk physically because that is what is required. You know what you would, because the cover that you're trying to get at that point in time is quite large. So it still speaks to that process that, look, there are different thresholds, there are different tiers, and where you need to assess physically, you assess physically. Where you can use online for things like motor insurance and things like that, then we've already put the process in place. Just send us the pictures. and all of that. And that's how we continue to work. I mean, we're actually thinking now about how we're going to use drones and everything to try and assess certain risks. But at this point in time, we're not there yet. We're hoping to be there soon.
Thank you, Alero. So Sandra, one more question from me to you before we round up at 12:02. Yes, so we're at a point when we had, when companies saw social credentials being validated through, say, CSR intervention. So with the global trends that we are seeing now, this may no longer be sufficient. So we see what a lot of iconic brands are doing in the US, like Apple, Cisco, Facebook, and Google, where they vehemently opposed a new voters law in the state of Georgia, so that will limit absentee voting and possibly depress voting by communities of color. So clearly there is a change afoot, right? So moving away from politics, how prepared are brands and companies in Nigeria for difficult public conversations around, say, gender inequality, workplace exploitation, sexuality, and very importantly, diversity and inclusion, another ruffle feather subject? How prepared are brands and companies in Nigeria for those kind of conversations?
Thanks, Miriam. I mean, there's no escaping it. As part of the circle of existence, these difficult conversations will continue to happen from time to time. And in fact, the list that you've mentioned will only become broader with more topics to add on to it. Yeah, so brands and companies don't have a choice. In fact, they don't have a choice in the type of topics that they will be dragged into, and their audiences will expect responses from them. I think it's very important for brands and companies to reframe their perspectives in this case. They need to be courageous and see this as an opportunity to even further share their brand values with their consumers and let them see how, and let them share with their consumers how they offer value to their lives. I would like to take a few examples of some of the things Nigerian brands have been seen to be doing. So in March was International Women's Day, and there were a couple of brand campaigns that were supporting and uprooting and standing up for women and in topics and conversations. So yes, I did see, I don't want to mention names now, but a lot of brands did come up with soft activations, communication taglines, partnerships with NGOs that are experts in these types of topics. And so yes, I would say the drumbeat is rolling, and some Nigerian brands and companies are definitely ready for these kinds of conversations. For example, as well, in my company, about 3-4 years ago, we got the role of an inclusion and diversity manager in-house. And this person is tasked with ensuring that we're able to reinforce the key topics about inclusion and diversity, training line managers on how to ensure that they have diverse work groups so that it's not just siloed into specific types of demography in the workspace. Well, while some companies are ready for this, I think there are also topics that companies will not be ready for, particularly when you also bring on the case of legislature. When you talk about sexuality, for example, legislature in Nigeria is very different from legislature in other parts of the world that you've mentioned. So it's very important that these companies will continue to watch those legislature and also use it as an opportunity to continuously check what topics that they can get into, how do these topics benefit their consumers? Because you must also always remember that with these social topics, there are always two different parts of the divide. There are the for and there are for the against. So, and this is not about, for me personally, it's not about an organization taking side with one person, but basically researching, a lot of research work is important, that so that the companies are able to get into the root of the matter. How does this affect people, and use that as a pain point that they want to solve? Yeah, some companies in Nigeria are also part of international and big global bodies. So arguably, you would recognize that what affects the mother brand in the overseas countries would technically trickle down to the local companies as well. Last year there was a Facebook boycott because many international companies believe that Facebook was not doing enough to check hate speeches on their platform and how those were being perpetrating hate crimes. Heineken International was part of the boycott, and yes, Nigerian breweries also participated in that boycott. So these topics will continue to widen and broaden, but most importantly, I would like to say we need to make sure that we check what regulation and local legislation is saying about these topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. So we have just about 3 minutes to go, but we'll be able to take just one question from Tommy in Lagos. So Desperado was, I might not be able to take that question. So I'll take the one to Mr. Adebayo. So considering the volume of untapped data and insights we have flying around, do you think the Nigerian market is positioned to maximize this? This is to Mr. Adebayo.
Of course, the Nigerian market is so dynamic, so vibrant. I think it's just that we are not seeing what we are, we don't know what we are sitting on. But I dare say, is a. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, I think I dare say the Nigerian market is so vibrant, so many data to sit on, and like I said earlier, so many sources of data. But I think increasingly it's also important to be well guided. Make meaning that numbers are good. What we do in marketing world is a game of numbers, and I quite agree that what you cannot count, you cannot manage. The moment you can count, it becomes easy to manage. Always remember, there's always a story behind the number, and that story is peculiar to you until you situate it within the context. And bear in mind, there's also the need to be on the spot, on ground assessment. You equally need to be in the market because Nigerian data, very okay. We still have the challenges of data gathering in this market. We cannot lose that down. But even it's good, no matter how faulty data is, the fact that we have something to work with is better. It will show you the road. How you now navigate it will now be dependent on the peculiarity of the brand you work on. And that is very, very important. Being able to study behind the number, very important.
Okay, thank you. Sandra, we have just a minute to go. I don't know if you can take this question in a minute. We have just 2 minutes to go. Thank you, Mr. Adebayo. So he says, Desperado was launched in Nigeria during the pandemic. How did you go about this successfully? Tommy from Lagos.
Hi, Tommy. Thank you for that question. So Desperados is one of the latest additions to our fantastic lineup of brand in Nigerian breweries portfolio. We have over 20 brands in the portfolio, and we decided to bring in Desperados at the tail end of last year. Yes, a lot of our marketing activities and campaigns were moved, obviously because of COVID, we had to rejig and reframe our perspectives in terms of how we wanted to engage our consumers. What was very critical was that as Nigerian breweries, we needed to stay focused on delivering great consumer experiences. And once that was not shaking, we then needed to go back to the drawing board and look at the steps that we needed to take to launch this new brand into the market. So we did a mix of digital and online activations and leveraging a lot on the use of social media influencers in this case, because Desperados is a fantastic party brand. It's a brand for young people who are made to be different. And we've recorded a lot of success with the brand. In February, we then had to roll out nationally, and the brand continues to break boundaries and make more leads and fames in the market. So yes, we use a lot of digital content, also did a lot of social media influencers. We signed up about 8 different influencers for the brand alone, while we then decided to do a hybrid of some online and some physical activities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just one last question following what you said about your launch with Desperados and influencers. So a couple of our viewers, a couple of your consumers actually, tired, or they already have eyeball fatigue from screen gazing following the pandemic. So what opportunities for activations has Nigerian breweries seized to reignite bonds with customers since limits on social gathering were eased?
We definitely had to leverage new media forms. Digital was one of them. We had a number of brands, renovations, and relaunches that were planned last year. We couldn't do the fantastic big events that Nigerian Breweries is known for to launch out this camp, to launch these brands. We had to do online launches. In April, as early on in the rollout of the pandemic, as it became more and more obvious that this was the new normal, we had the first finale music concert for Access the Stars in April. At some point, we were going to put on hold the finale, but we thought, why not take it online? And that became the first online concert that a brand in this country did for the finale of Access the Stars. In order to also ensure that we kept the gaze of our consumers to our brand activities, we also decided to bring back some programs that consumers know us very well for, programs that in the past that consumers have always loved and enjoyed. A key example is Gouda Ultimate Search. We did the rerun of Gouda Ultimate Search on TV stations because, like Mr. Adebayo pointed out, we had the eyeballs of these consumers when they were sitting down in lockdown. And Gouda Ultimate Search was a great opportunity for us to leverage the TV platform to basically share new memories and new opportunities for viewing for the Gouda brand.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Alera. Thank you, Yinka, for these very insightful contributions to the panel. We're far gone already. We're supposed to end this 2 minutes ago, but I had to ask Sandra those questions, following some of the questions from the audience. So thank you for your time. Thank you, BusinessDay, as well, for giving us this opportunity. I'll be handing over to Linda Ochubwa. So she's the manager of digital sales at BusinessDay. Linda, over to you. Sorry about the pronunciation.
Miriam, thank you so much for helping me with my name. My name is Linda Ochubwa.
I'm so sorry. So
it's pronounced E, but written A. I really want to thank you for moderating this panel. Thank you so much for doing a good job.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda. I'll be your coordinator for the day, and I'll be handing you over for, from the next presentation to the next panel session. So stay with me. I hope we have learned, a few things from our last speakers. It's been a very interesting session, and here are some of the things that I would say are my takeaways from what they have said. In the whole pandemic and issues, we have seen that some companies have done very well, while some companies are complaining, but it's all about changing your strategy and being innovative and creative. That's one. We've also seen that some companies, according to Yinka and the agency, have seen that productivity has even increased. So where people are working from home and saving travel time at office, they're being effective. So people can make, orders. You can decide you want to start a campaign, pay online, and everything is done, and everyone is coordinated properly, and clients are happy. So even in the midst of the whole COVID and the pandemic, we've also seen that productivity hasn't reduced, but has even become effective and have increased. Thank you so much for that. I also got a few things, concerning the fact that the rule, has changed, and how you have to appreciate people who work for you is really key if you're going to retain the right talents to help you achieve what you need to achieve. We also talked about the fact that, the economy is changing, and that Nigeria used to be a daily economy. We used to be built on what we sell is what we eat. But with this whole thing, things are changing, and people are beginning to see that there are better ways of doing stuff. Yeah, online is fine, according to one of our speakers, but it's not the solution to everything. Of course, 70% of things have gone online, but a few things are still happening out there, which is why companies need to also leverage on partnership. I know she mentioned a lot about using partnership to be able to help you grow without wasting so much time. I would like to quickly read the profile of our next speaker. She's going to be presenting. She has a presentation for us. I want us to quickly have her profile, and then I'll bring her on board. So just stay with me while I quickly read her profile for you. So we have a presentation from Ifeoma Dozie. She's the Director of Marketing and Communications, SSA Mastercard. She's a result-oriented marketing director with more than 15 years experience, skilled in shaping and implementing commercial and business strategies to deliver high-quality integrated solutions. Ifeoma is currently the Director of Marketing and Communications, Sub-Saharan Africa at Mastercard Company, where she oversees the company's strategic communication. well served in all aspects of traditional and digital marketing and driving business to deliver exceptional levels of ROI. Ifeoma has extensive international work experience across different categories within the drink sector. She was the regional marketing officer at the Heineken Company, where she was responsible for the development of strategic business plans and marketing capabilities for key markets within the African region. She also improved the equity growth, sales performance, and profitability of the non-alcoholic drinks category in line with the company's overall profit and portfolio objectives during her time as marketing manager, non-alcoholic drinks at the Heineken Company, Nigeria, a position she held for more than 4 years. An alumnus of King's College London, where she bagged a master's degree in international business law. Ifeoma obtained her Bachelor of Law degree, LLB, from University of Bristol. If we have Ifeoma ready, the floor is yours. We'll have you take your presentation before we move on to panel session 2. Is she ready?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone that's on the call. Massive thanks to BusinessDay for organizing this session today. It's such a critical and very relevant topic that marketeers need to focus on, ranging from what the keynote speaker mentioned at the start about how does marketing impact business? How does marketing drive value? And obviously everything that the last panelists spoke about as well, and I'm sure will be covered in the course of today. So I would just share my screen because I do have a presentation that talks about the evolution of the Mastercard brand. What's important is building the right foundation, and identity is a very critical component of that. Mastercard is a brand that has over 50 years of heritage, but it's also a brand that has evolved and has transitioned its identity while staying true to its core. So let me just pull up my presentation. So the purpose of today is to talk about that journey, the journey of transition, of evolution, and also of innovation, because Mastercard is a company that is at the forefront of trends, not just within the payment space, but within the technology space. So it's also a presentation that would shed some insights into how we are able to continuously impact business results from our role of marketing within IMC. And IMC for us is integrated marketing and communications. It's one and the same for us. So PR is not a separate entity, so to speak, but we work together as one team. And also how we stay up to date with the trends of today. One of the last panelists spoke about the importance of keeping abreast of the evolving trends that are going on within our industry. So I will also share some insights with regard to what we are doing at Mastercard to ensure that we are at the forefront of those trends. So first and foremost, I'm proud to share that Mastercard is a brand that sits today globally as one of the top brands. At the start of today's session, we spoke about brand value. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Kantar's brand valuation ranking, which looks at how brands contribute to the overall value of the company. Today, Mastercard sits as number 10 and ranks amongst other brands that you see on the left, brands such as Nike, brands such as Apple, Coca-Cola, etc. It's a KPI that we are very proud to share, because if you look back to about 10 years ago, Mastercard was actually at number 87. So it has seen significant growth in value over the last 10 to 20 years. Now, before I play this video, I also want to talk about a critical point in the evolution of the brand, and that was by launching the Priceless campaign. Priceless is a positioning of the Mastercard brand that has stayed true to its overall brand story. It was launched in 1997 at a time where most cardholders and most consumers and most customers were placing value on things that you can buy. And the point of differentiation for Mastercard in its positioning was actually to focus on things that you can't place a value on, the things that money can't buy, which was indeed the launch of the Priceless campaign. I'm not too sure if you can hear this video, but I'm sure most of you are indeed familiar with it because it has won many awards over the years. So I will play the video, which hopefully you can see and hear. So that was indeed the launch of Priceless. That was launched about 20 years ago, and it's a platform that has been consistently applied across, everything that we do in the company. It's a single word, which is fantastic because it's a single word that can be associated with the brand. It drives differentiation, and it also creates, it's part of that value that I spoke about that has been driving business impact for our partners and customers. It's also quite purpose-driven. Mastercard is not just a card company. It's not just a payment brand, but it's also a purpose-driven brand. Now, how do we bring that to life in a bit more detail? I think this evolution is quite powerful because it also speaks to the evolution of how marketing has evolved over time. We are no longer in the moment where a brand needs to shout out and a brand needs to tell its story. We're now at that critical point where you need to enable and empower. You need to enable priceless experiences, and you also need to empower consumers to find the right path for them. So we have evolved over time from storytelling to story making, and now the stage that we're in is really about story inspiring, which is a critical aspect of how we bring our positioning to life. In that video, you saw the Mastercard logo, the previous Mastercard logo. Our identity has also evolved over time. As you can see from the different iterations on the right, what has remained consistent, of course, are the colors that we use. But this is a brand that has started from being called Mastercharge, to Mastercard, written in a different way, to now what we call a symbol brand. And this is an important sign of the times. We are now operating in a highly digital and online space, in a space where you have to be recognizable at the blink of an eye. Now, for us at Mastercard, extensive research was conducted before we moved to the stage where we actually dropped the name from our brand. And that's because research demonstrated that our logo can stand on its own as a symbol brand. It demonstrated that people recognize the two circles and what they represent. So now we move forward with this symbol brand that can be used in the online space. In addition to that, we also have a sonic identity. The sonic identity is very critical because, like I said, we are moving more and more into online. Global trends show us also that connected devices are really connected through audio. So, being able to have an identifier as part of your visual landscape that is triggered by sound is extremely important for us. So the sonic identity, in addition to the symbol brand, was quite a bold step in our evolution and transformation journey. So name dropped in most use cases that we deploy, and just a focus on the symbol itself. Now, the role of our brand is extremely critical to the business model, which is why it has contributed to value over the years. It's why we are now sitting at number 10 amongst other global brands in the world. And that role is really about winning share, driving brand health, but also how we partner. So Mastercard is a B2B company, but it's also a B2C company, as well as a B2B2C company. So the model that we deploy is about acquisition, preference, and usage. These three components enable us to really deliver the right kind of results that drive the value to the organization. What we also know is that consumers want brands that actually have a meaningful difference in the lives of consumers. They want brands that actually make the world a better place, that are standing up for the right things. And also, once they see brands that are able to do that, then it impacts their purchase decisions. So Start Something Priceless is part of our purposeful positioning. It's really about the fact that the best moments in life don't just happen, but actually people make them happen. And it reminds us about the power to create a memory, to ignite a passion, to make a difference, and sometimes to launch a movement. So the priceless platforms that we have 4 different elements of this. We have priceless cities. We also have priceless specials. We have priceless causes and priceless surprises. So an example of priceless specials is where we work a lot with celebrities, and we use celebrities and influencers to really add value and instant gratification to our cardholders and our partners. Some of the causes that we support, for instance, inclusion is a very big, important objective for the Mastercard company, as well as the environment. So right now we have a Priceless Planet Coalition that is really a commitment to planting trees that would have a positive impact on the environment globally, as well as priceless surprises. In addition to that, we have a passion point strategy. Our passion point strategy is really about understanding what consumers care about. Yeah, and it's funny, I think the last panelist started with an Arsenal analogy. Football, of course, is big in Africa, but in addition to football, we have assets, global sponsorship assets that cut across the dining, culinary space, but also music, also golf, also traveling. And through those assets, we are able to leverage the right kind of experiences. A few examples of some of these sponsorship assets, it ranges from the Grammys to the Australian Open to UEFA Champions League, of course, which we actively implement in Africa, to the Venice Film Festival, to rugby, and so on. And as I mentioned, we also have brand ambassadors that we work with, globally and also locally. And this really enables us to have the right kind of engagement with our cardholders and our partners, as well as the right kind of experiences that are relevant. So here, we have quite a number of global ambassadors, but we also work with regional ambassadors as well. I mentioned this, so I wouldn't spend too much time on it, but we as a brand, what is critical to our DNA is the notion of doing well by doing good. And that's really about tapping into the purpose. It's something that we take tremendous pride in. It's why we really focus as part of IMC into initiatives that not just delight and surprise, but make the world and the communities that define our world a better place. So this, I mentioned financial inclusion. What does it mean for Mastercard? It's really about 1 billion people, bringing 1 billion people into the digital economy. As we know, there is a huge amount of exclusion from the digital economy within Africa. A lot of Africans are still unbanked or underbanked. So we have a commitment to really drive and accelerate financial inclusion. Women is also another cause that we support, and it's really about supporting women to grow their businesses, women SMEs, women entrepreneurs. And we have quite a number of partnerships that we work with globally and locally in this space. The youth and the female youth is one that we actively work on in Nigeria and also in Kenya and across other countries in sub-Saharan Africa with partnerships like Junior Achievers. Is one that I'm particularly proud of because it has the right level of impact in terms of the youth and shaping what the future looks like. I'm really encouraging more girls to have careers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. The Priceless Planet Coalition, as I mentioned, the commitment is really to plant 100 million trees in 5 years. I think what COVID taught us is, we are a global village. So we really have to work together to think about the impact that we're having on the environment, and planting trees and having that positive impact on climate change is a critical part of our mission. Now, the other aspect that I wanted to talk about is linked to the evolution from an identity perspective that we implemented with regard to the sonic identity. Now, when I referenced the sonic identity, I spoke about how we see more and more transactions and engagements going on within the digital space. We see more and more connected devices. We see the role that audio plays in how we interact and the role that it plays within marketing. Now, what we are also looking at very closely are all of the trends, the technology trends, the data, the IoT, the artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, virtual reality. And we're really taking a step back to understand how does this impact marketing. And our global CMO, Raja Rajamana, has just written a book, which I highly recommend everyone to read and to get. It's called Quantum Marketing. And in his book, he talks about the 5th paradigm of marketing. And it's really about the fact that marketing is changing very rapidly and quite dramatically. And in some instances, marketing will actually experience a crisis of identity based on the number of trends and the number of changes that we are seeing both in the consumer and customer landscape. And Africa is not excluded from this. We already see some changes that are happening that really give us pause, that really ask us to question, okay, how can we evolve marketing and what do we need to do differently? And I think the important points to note here are that marketing is both a science and it's an art. So classical marketeers focus on the arts, the creativity, and the innovation. Marketeers in the last couple of years have focused more on data. Raja says in his book that the fifth paradigm of marketing needs marketeers to act like Leonardo da Vinci, which I really love the comparison. And it's really speaking to a combination of both the science and the art, being analytical, understanding data, understanding the ROI of your investment, understanding how you can generate incremental revenue, understanding the bottom line, understanding the P&L, as well as the creativity. How can you capture the hearts and minds of consumers? How can you stay innovative in a changing landscape? How can you develop a brand positioning? How can you evolve a brand identity? Those two classical components need to work together to enable us to succeed. In addition to that, a marketeer today is really more of a general manager. It's really more about connecting the dots between marketing and communications and the business, working very closely and collaboratively with the rest of the organization to ensure that together as a team, you have the right impact and you have the right results. So that is the fifth paradigm of marketing. That is the challenge of marketeers today, staying abreast of all the changing technology trends, but also being having that critical look on business results and being able to demonstrate that marketing can indeed drive the value to organizations that I spoke about in the start of this presentation. So in summary, I think what I hope I have shared today is that Mastercard is a brand with the greatest momentum in its category, but it's also a brand that has a very interesting case study, a case study around evolution and transformation in terms of design and in terms of staying abreast of trends, but also a brand that has remained true to its core, which is around the priceless positioning. It's a brand that is really deep-rooted in human truths and that lives its values, but it's also continuously innovating and tapping into experiences that really have the right impact on our partners, on the business results. So that's all I have to share today. And hopefully that was relevant to those that joined on the call. So thank you very much. Linda, I don't know if you're still there.
Of course, I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. Hi, good afternoon. I really want to thank you. Amazing presentation. I'm also one of the great fans of Mastercard with the whole thing you guys are doing, also supporting the young people and empowering them in the trainings you're doing with various training companies. I've had some people benefit from that. I think you also partnered with Jobaman to train some young people. But a few takeaways from what you have said, which is amazing in terms of the fact that Mastercard is actually number 3, like one of the greatest brands in the world. That's amazing.
Number 10.
Thank you so much for that. I was really thrilled to see, the explanation on how the brand has also evolved, which is really key. You made a mention about the B2B, the win share, the B2C, drive brand health, and also partnership marketing, which has also helped. One thing that I also noticed is that you guys are doing a lot in terms of empowering women, which is really fantastic. I'm not trying to be biased because I'm a woman, but of course, it's really cool. So, it's really good to see that the brand have grown over the years and is still standing strong. Most times you'll see brands come and go, they die off along the line, but then you see brands that stay and stand the test of time and also stand out and then also hold the attention of their consumers and market and evolve and change with them. Your company and your brand has done that. I'm sure people have learned, a few things from you today. I learned. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We really appreciate your time. Without wasting so much time, I would like
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ifoma. I would like to introduce our next moderator. She's going to be taking us through panel session 2. Panel session 2 is looking at rewriting the playbook, stories from the frontier. I don't know if Tolulope is ready. I will read her profile briefly while she gets ready, and then she's also going to be anchoring and managing panel session 2. Tolulope Adelero Balogun is a multi-talented journalist with over 12 years experience in broadcast journalism. She has broad experience in jump-starting new media organizations and helping to guide them to success. Tolulope has led several teams to achieve their set goals with organizations she worked in and in ad hoc committees where she was given the responsibility to lead. Tolulope has hosted political TV and radio shows for over 10 years, bringing a distinct flair and presentation style that leaves the viewer wanting more. She just finished a 7-year run on radio where she made her show one of the top 5 listened to shows in Lagos. This was no easy feature as she did this in a radio market of more than 28 stations, vying and fighting for listeners amid fierce competition during the morning drive. Tolulope is also a seasoned event compare, having hosted events like the Nigerian Leadership Summit, the launch of the Youth Entrepreneurship Strategy in partnership with the Presidency, the Experiential Marketing Conference, the New Media and Governance Conference, as well as the Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum, and many more. Able to weave together all the elements of an event, Tolulope ensures that the event flows smoothly and that the energy and enthusiasm last from the beginning to the very end. Her years of live radio have helped her to hone her improvising skills, and she will guide the event through any emergency. If Tolulope is ready, the floor and the stage is ready for you so that you can start. I hope
Thank you so much, Linda. You did very much. Thank you so much. I'm the one who wrote my own profile, but sometimes when I hear my profile, I'm like, really? I'm the one who's done that. Good afternoon.
You have to read your profile. It sounds like,
yes.
Have I done all this? Thank you, Tolulope.
Am I the one they're talking about? But apparently you are. Thank you so much, Linda. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you. I'll say a big thank you on behalf of Business Day for you taking out your time to be part of the Masters of Marketing conference today. We're going to be looking at rewriting the playbook, stories from the front lines of direct-to-consumer marketing. I was supposed to have 3 panelists, but I'm going to have 2 because unfortunately one of our panelists, Steve Babeko, is unable to attend. He has to attend to some urgent matters. So before we get started, just a reminder, please don't forget, we want to get questions coming in as well. You know how to do that. You go to slido.com. That's SLIDO.com. Use the hashtag or the password or the passcode MOM2021, and that will get you access so that all your questions can come in. So please, let's not forget to do that. So let's get straight into a brief introduction of our topic, and then I will introduce my panelists. So social media has brought about a number of different things. It has brought about a wholesale democratization of the direct access to the consumer. The greatest beneficiaries have been SMEs, small and medium scale businesses with slim budgets and some nimble skills getting their messages out there. How are they doing this? What companies and campaigns are standing out for innovation and growth in the marketing model? But big companies as well, with brand portfolios worth several billions, are not left out. They too are adopting innovative cost-saving paths to the consumer that remain within their control and allow them to harvest data and to restore control of the customer experience to their sphere of influence. This panel is bringing together some of the standout companies and agencies that are rewriting the playbook for getting the most bang for every marketing buck spent. And as I said earlier, unfortunately, Steve Babeko won't be able to join us. But joining us, we have the Director, Client Service and Strategy at EXP Marketing, Oteme Oyo. He, of course, heads one of Africa's premier experiential marketing organizations in Nigeria. He is an experienced senior level marketing and communication leader with extensive brand and marketing strategy experience across a wide spectrum of industries, including food and beverages, packaging, oil and gas, and telecommunications. He's also worked with multinationals like Nestle, the Sahara Group, Tetra Pak, Coca-Cola, and more. So Oteme, welcome to this panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
All right, and also joining us, I have Oge Maduagu. She is the country media lead, Unilever West Africa. She is an experienced marketing professional with a bias towards insight-driven end-to-end media and communication for brands. Prior to joining Unilever, she has spent almost a decade on the agency side with one of the biggest media independent agencies in Lagos, working with FMCGs, telcos, banking, and tech brands, exiting as a team lead of one of the business units there. Now, she works to bring the outside in by leveraging relationships with key media partners as well as agency partners to deliver data-based, insight-driven learning from the brands and the entire marketing team. Okay, it's good to see you again. It's good to speak to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Hello to you. Thank you.
Hello. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us. Let's get straight into this. I sort of like to warm things up when we do these kind of panels, just going by the general topic we have today, which is rewriting the playbook. I think let's start there with a very open-ended question for the two of you. What does that mean, really, rewriting the playbook? Do you think that in 2021, after the pandemic year, with all the insights and the data that agencies are able to get, that brands are able to get right now, is the playbook still the same? Or have we thrown the playbook out the window and we're rewriting it, or no one is even playing by any rules at this point in time? Otome, let me start with you.
Thank you very much, Tolu. Yes, there is a rewriting of the playbook because a lot of the things that we held as sort of sacrosanct in the year before the pandemic have all been thrown out of the window. I mean, we're doing this would have been an event. This would have been a big room with a whole lot of people. We're doing this virtually, and more people are able to access some of these things. So while I will say there is a rewriting of the playbook, I will also say that there is, in some cases, a modification of the playbook. So what am I saying? The fundamental principles still remain the same. Marketing is still a human conversation, right? Products are still a human conversation. How those products are delivered, at the time at which they're delivered, the mode under which they're delivered, and all of those variables will have to change. And they've changed over the period, over a long period. We've gone from town criers to the internet, right? We've gone from word of mouth to social media. So what has just changed is the medium, is the media by which we do what we do. But what we do fundamentally will not change. And so, yes, of course, a lot of it is more data-driven because, again, a lot of people are giving up more data to be able to access certain things. But I think fundamentally, it's still a human conversation, and it is still just modifying the playbook based on what is pretty much on the ground.
Okay, he's speaking from the agency side of things, which is something you're also familiar with. But on the brand side of things, there possibly was a playbook that brands were using when it came to marketing communications and it came to communicating with their customers. Has that playbook sort of been thrown out the window with the pandemic? Or as he's saying, we are rewriting it because at the very base level, at the very bottom of it, the same thing that you've been trying to do for hundreds of years is the same thing that we're trying to do: communicate with customers, show them how to use our products, why our products are important. What do you think?
So absolutely, Otoma is absolutely correct. We rewrite in the playbook. So what was there before was that, where there were structured ways and manners in which we're talking to our consumers. Now with the pandemic, everything sort of changed. I mean, one of the speakers at the last panel had said everybody was sort of confused and had to regroup. For us, I think it's still basically the same. Who are you talking to? We're still talking to our consumers, not just as numbers, but as actual human beings. We still need to get our products to the consumers. Now, what will then change will be how we are reaching out to these people. One, have their media habits changed? Have their consumption habits changed? Has it moved from one bucket to another bucket? Are they mixing? Are they swapping? Are they throwing something out? It depends on how they are now maxing their mix, basically. So that way we're following them because, at Unilever, we're very, very insight driven, and that's what we do. What exactly is the market saying? Where is the consumer going? And how do we go with them to reach them effectively?
All right, so Otome, let me come back to you. So sticking with sort of the conversation around how the pandemic has affected what you do, what we all do, what the media does, what advertising, what marketing does. When it came to experiential marketing, which is something that has really taken off in Nigeria in the past few years, we've seen a difference in how things are being done because of brands wanting customers and consumers to experience them in a different way. So we experience great growth as brands directed budgets into big ticket sponsorships and even local activations. But we know that was also slowed down by the COVID pandemic. So just last week, we've seen tempos increase for the cancellation of the Tokyo Olympics. People are still worried. They want to go out, but they're worried about going out. So how do you sort of bridge that fear? As an agency who needs to continue to sell for their brand? How do you bridge that fear of there is still a pandemic outside. The coronavirus is still very present. It's still killing people. It's still infecting people, but people want to go out. They want to get back to experiencing life. We're tired of really just living life through our phones and our TVs and through a limited bubble of people. So how is that gap being bridged?
I think first things first, a pandemic is a once in 100-year conversation. It's unfortunate. But it's one of those things that happened 100 years ago. Basically, what they did 100 years ago is what we're doing now. We're wearing masks. We're staying inside. We're distancing ourselves. We're waiting it out and treating it out. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but I've taken my first dose of the vaccine and I'm waiting for my second dose. So hey, let's be, as they say, let's be guided. But I think we will wait it out. We will go back to the way we will. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to, so we were sort of a pendulum in the middle. And there was not too much swing. We were just, moving along. And then the pandemic shifted us in one direction. What's likely to happen as this ebbs is we will swing, and we will swing to the other side. And it played out sort of in November, December. We went back as if nothing happened. And then, of course, we paid the price for it in January. But, we will swing all the way back to big events. Everybody wants to go to a concert. Everybody now says, oh, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to this big concert. I'm traveling for this. I'm doing that. But I think ultimately we will come back to some kind of a hybrid approach. Our office reopened fully last week. And by Tuesday, I was exhausted. And I said to myself, what's going on? And I realized that my level of physical activity when it comes to work has changed. So we will come back, where we will settle back to will be somewhere where we will be okay with going to concerts, but we'll be okay with watching a concert on our phone. Really, it's not a big deal. And I think for us as in the experiential space, or what we like to call consumer engagement space, the act of picking up your phone is an experience, which is why you can open Instagram because the experience is so quote unquote good. You can open Instagram and keep scrolling for 2 hours.
Sure.
You understand? You can keep scrolling for 2 hours and it's just experience after experience after experience. So for us, I mean, in the last 1 year, we've had to think way outside the box in terms of the ways in which we can help our clients engage consumers. And so we worked on fairly big projects like MTN Yellow Star, where under normal circumstances, if MTN was holding a big music event, or if anybody was holding a big audition-based event, you'd have big physical events, people would have to come, line up, and all of that. Through the power of the mobile device, we were able to audition over 10,000 entries live. Literally, the way I'm doing this, I would pick up my phone, hold my phone, sing face-to-face with a judge, and the guy would give me tips and whatever and give me a score, and that would be it. So for the first time in a long time, we've been able to do things that are auditable. So while that is digital and it's mobile-based and everybody goes, oh, I really wish I could go outside, there is some value, and I hate to say this, but there is some value that has come from the pandemic. We will change the way in which we will do things. We will go back to sort of a hybrid type event. It means that if BusinessDay is doing this, you can bring more people into the tent from outside, but also you can have speakers from all over the world without having to fly them in on a first-class ticket and put them up in a fantastic hotel. You know what I mean? And you're only taking out 1 hour in their day. So I think we will go back to some form of normalcy, but I think we will change. We will inch forward in the journey of human experience.
Yeah. So basically, this is a whole new chapter in the playbook, both for the agency, both for the brands who are trying to meet the consumer at their needs, at their point of their needs, as we might say in Nigeria, and even for the consumer who's just trying to find their footing. So, okay, he's talked about it again from an agency standpoint, how they used MTN Yellow Star and were able to audition 10,000 people using the phone, and that's magnificent. Just think about the physical needs that would have come into play if they needed to interview 10,000 people across the country, the days it would take, the production crew, the money you would have to use. And this whole thing, unfortunately, had this side effect, a positive one, a cost-cutting one in some ways for them. But for a brand such as Unilever, which, yes, is possibly in every single person's home, some brand or some parts of Unilever is probably in all of our homes right now because of how spread out their portfolio is. How did Unilever decide to engage with the pandemic lockdown that came in afterwards as people started opening back up again? What was that like for you?
So I would say for us, I think we're proceeding with extreme caution. We've been working from home since March last year, and we're still working from home till now. And so we're proceeding with extreme caution. At the end of the day, it's important that we're safe and operating within government regulation. And this also spread across the activities that we did. So during the pandemic, what we did was, it was a confusing time for everybody, to be honest. But what we did was to then quickly assess the situation, we strategized in order to, again, stay with the consumer that is the center of all our activities. Look through how their habits had changed. They had moved from one channel to the other channel. Of course, out of home almost fell flat. People were not so much on the road anymore. A lot of people were now at home, watching TV from end to end. So we skewed, of course, with we also had to lean on our agency partners, of course, to come up with a lot more innovative ways to reach our consumers how they could. Now, in going out to the market now to reach them, like I said, I think we've cut down a lot on actual face-to-face activities with consumers, instead trying to leverage the new ways, digital, to go through, virtually, whatever it is you can do live, you can also do virtual. So we've conducted a lot of those things virtually. I'll give you an example of what we had in Ghana, where the government launched an app, and there was a live concert. It was a virtual concert, and we were able to go in there, and we had our scroll messages and all of those things even within the concert. And by the way, won us an award. So that's really how. So that's really how it happened. It's basically around following the consumer again and just seeing them as human beings, like we had said. The pandemic has inherently changed us, to be honest. Things may go back to normal, but it has inherently changed us. It's changed the ways we do things. I think empathy is at an all-time high. How we craft our messages is also a bit different, and even the ways we reach our consumers. Yeah.
So let me stay with you. You talk about crafting your message. It's also about the channels that you use for that message to get out there. So in 2009, Unilever launched its Everyday Essentials storefront on e-commerce site Jumia, which is possibly the most prominent DTC initiative by leading FMCG in Nigeria. So congratulations on that. So tell us, looking at how that took off and what the uptake has been, what's been the response from the customers? What's been the uptake? Have they made it part of their everyday lives? So it's, if I need something and it's a Unilever product, I know how to go straight to Jumia to get it. Are you getting the response you wanted?
Well, absolutely. Since we got into that partnership, especially having the storefront, the uptake has been good. It's been good. We've seen great growth, and it's not far-fetched because e-commerce and convenience shopping skyrocketed during the pandemic because you couldn't go physically to the market. So you just go down to what you just do at the click of a button, you get what you had to do. So we then made that easier by offering, of course, bundle offers, promo deals, and then you click on there. So I would say it's been a good one. We've seen growth, and we intend to keep it that way.
Were there any insights in terms of consumer behavior and patterns, any data insight that the team was able to uncover from this channel?
Oh, absolutely. So looking at the searches and looking at the sales, looking at what brands consumers were focused on, some of the insights we got from this venture was to see what the market was looking for. So looking through, so at the end of the day, we mine our data from this platform, and we're able to see what exactly what consumers are focused on, and then that also guided our approach in terms of direction of focus. So that's one of the big lessons we got.
All right, so Otome, I'm bringing you back in our conversation. Let's look at something new that's happening now, and that's around this idea of acoustic or sonic branding, as it may be. And it's been on the rise. We're seeing brands, you're laughing. Let me get to my question first. We've seen brands use it, and this is basically audible touch points for customer experience, from TV, radio, to POS and stores as well, to contact centers, mobile apps, workplaces, online and social. We're sort of being bombarded by different types of experiences, and acoustic and audio is part of that. We've seen a few brands who've done this very successfully here in Nigeria, while we, Mastercard, MTN, as well as Nokia. But we've also seen attention spans start to drop, and I want us to get into the attention economy conversation now. So when you look at that, and we're having, you're giving, there's just so much information, there's so much you want people to know about the brands that you represent, but they're giving you sort of less time. So while you use the example of spending 2 hours on Instagram, I can spend 2 hours on Instagram, but am I absolutely engaging with brands when I spend that 2 hours? I'll see their ads, but am I actually responding to the ads? Am I engaging with the ads when they come? So as you see the attention span start to sort of drop, according to experts, they're telling us we don't pay attention as longer as we used to. How are you sort of bridging that gap? Will every brand get it right? Should everybody try to be in the audible space when it comes to this?
I think it's, okay, so first things first, the audible space is not new. It's just the mode of delivery that has changed. The majority of my experience, I work for an agency now, but the majority of my experience has been on the client side. And if I did this, did you hear me?
I did.
You didn't hear?
I heard. That? It was a clap.
No. Listen again.
Okay, there's a rhythm to it, but then there's a change in the audio.
Well, okay, maybe because you're listening over this. Every brand tends to have an audio signature. So when we say Milo, Milo, it's given. And the best brands in the world tend to craft their message. Milo, Coca-Cola has its 5 tones. Dun, 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 dun. And every song that they come up with has those 5 tones in it. So it's just the mode of delivery that has changed. I think as attention spans continue to reduce, the reason why you can spend 2 hours on Instagram is that you're not looking at the same thing for 2 hours. You're looking at different things for 2 hours. And so what brands are learning to do and must continue to learn to do is to deliver messaging in the easiest, clearest, and most understandable way in the shortest possible time. It's a stretch, I understand, but a few brands have done it, because all you're trying to do is to continue to drive top of mind awareness, so that when you drive top of mind awareness so much so that it gets into the brand's the consumer's subconscious.
Yes.
Right. It becomes automatic. So when they walk into a store, they recognize the green. That's why when you walk into a store and they change the location of a brand that you know, you close your eyes and all you hear is, close your eyes and turn up the volume, and all you hear is a bottle of Coke being opened, poured over ice. You can hear the glass clinking, everything, and somebody drinking it, and it then says you can open audibly it says you can open your eyes now, and it says Coca-Cola, or enjoy Coca-Cola. There is nothing in that ad. Literally, if you watch it with your eyes, it's a blank screen. It's a completely blank screen. So it's how do we, and I say we in the Maxi community, brands and agencies, come up with the best possible way in passing across our message and getting into the subconscious of consumers with the best possible campaigns. And it's an iterative process. We will go through it. Coca-Cola came up with Share a Coke, which was, to my mind, one of the most powerful campaigns of any brand worldwide, because just having your and it was so inane, but honestly, people responded in ways that I have never seen. People used it to propose, people looked for their names, and Coke had to actually produce cans for them and all of that. So it's really about getting into the subconscious, jumping into the subconscious of consumers. So the ways in which sort of brands can do that is one, understanding what are the basic human truths, what are the things that human beings are ultimately looking for. For some people, it's peace of mind. For some people, it's advancement. For some, whatever it is, what are the basic human truths? Some of them are just, which is why Coke did share Coke, recognition of I am a human being, right? I know Lacasera came up with an ad during the pandemic where it says this is not a full stop, and it reminded us as Nigerians that, listen, guys, nothing can hold us down, right? So don't be afraid. Let's move forward. And I love the line in it that says, when life show you pepper, they can make pepper soup. You understand? it taps into the essential Nigerianness of us all. And so finding those basic human truths, turning them into messaging that your brand can support, and delivering them in the shortest possible, most powerful way is what is going to be. It may be audio, it may be, Safaricom in Kenya, for instance, did a talking billboard. So they put a billboard at an intersection, and they were just taking photographs. They were taking video footage and rebroadcasting that video footage onto the screen, but identifying the make and model. Red Toyota, say honk your horn, and you're looking at the billboard and go, that's me.
Is that my car?
Is that my car? And you're like, and it says honk your horn. You honk your horn, and the thing gives you a thumbs up, and you're like, whoa, you feel recognized. Right? And so we will find new and interesting ways. It's just for us to continue to work together to find those things.
And it's interesting as you talk about this, I'm thinking back to tunes that for no reason I'll just start singing. So when I was growing up, Coca-Cola had these adverts with the white polar bear. And if I start singing now, this probably will be over. But if I start singing this, I know there's a lot of people here who know. The stars will always shine, the birds will always sing. And there are days that I will, yes, there are days I will just be walking. And guess what? I start singing this song, even the Minimi song. So as you're saying it, it's making so much sense with how much programming, which is a bit scary if we use that word, but how much ingrained some of these have become into our lives. So, okay, I have to say hats off to Coca-Cola. I'm walking around, I'll just be singing the song for no reason, you know?
But there is a consistency with it. If you keep doing it over a period of time, keeping quiet doesn't make sense. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep being in people's lives and in people's headspace, or else you lose them.
Very true. So, okay, talking about our headspace, talking about the attention economy, what are you doing? What is Unilever doing to integrate themselves more? Even though, as I said earlier, a lot of the products are part of our everyday living for many people, not just here in Nigeria, but across the world. With decreased attention spans, how are masters of marketing like yourself, like Otome, like Steve, unfortunately, who was not able to join us, how are you guys working around that? He's talked about the audio, the audible parts of it, also about the programming aspect, making sure that you are simply just front and center at all times.
So I'll tell you, it's about standing out. The attention span of the average human is now, I think, 8 seconds. It had shrunk by nearly 25% in just a few years. So, I mean, to this end, what we basically need to keep doing is to get to the point of whatever message you need to pass across fast. So on digital, we talk about thumb stopping creatives. So we're in the era of scroll culture. So you're scrolling this way. What kind of content do you have, or what kind of asset do you have that will make people stop and engage with your content? If you don't stand out, you'll be scrolled past and basically ignored. So brands again have to work twice as hard, if not more, than the average person to earn an engagement. On my personal page, I could put a picture and people will like it and engage with it. But as a brand, you have to work twice as hard. You have to ensure your content is top notch. You have to ensure it's relatable before people actually engage. Secondly, it's about content. So a lot of people say content is king, but I would say storytelling is a kingmaker. How good and relatable your content plus how you tell your story is what helps to bolster memorability and brand power. I think Otome also mentioned something about what he was talking about was the distinctive brand assets. That's the Coke thing. Omo has it with the splats. Sunlight has it. So we have different kind of brand assets. So that way you keep those cues within your assets to ensure that even without your ad, your full length ad running, people already know. And again, Otome, I keep referring back to what he said because I mean they're very relevant. It's about remaining salient. If you're not salient, meaning if you don't consistently remain on air, people will forget. So that's really what it is. So finally, I think one good question we need to ask ourselves is, what need am I answering as I tell my story in order to stand out?
Okay, so I want to remind the audience that we're taking questions via Slido. It's slido.com. You can use the hashtag MOM2021. I've seen a few comments, a few questions coming in. So please send your questions there, slido.com, SLIDO.com, and hashtag is MOM2021. Let's talk about brick and mortar for a bit, because a lot of the conversation, fortunately and unfortunately, will focus on how we've reacted, related, and sort of found our way around the pandemic. But brick and mortar was affected heavily. And brick and mortar has been the traditional location, the traditional sort of, the T-junction where brands and consumers tended to meet before now. But that's really sort of changing. We've seen them having their inefficiencies, their vulnerabilities when it comes to the supply chain, and all of that sort of really shown up. So while distributors and stores have historically played a very big role in brand awareness and customer acquisition strategies, we've seen a few brands, especially the newer ones, that are not investing heavily in brick and mortar footprints. They're looking to find their footprint elsewhere, especially as we know on social media and digital. We've seen marketing budgets also reduce. So Tome, let me come back to you now. Marketing budgets are reduced. We're seeing more people who are not necessarily investing so heavy in engagement or any form of some form of marketing on the brick and mortar side of things. But what do you think we should be looking at? Because when you come to rural areas, you may not be able to have the same social media online engagement as you have in urban centers. That has to be taken into consideration. Is it also a very viable DTC for every brand? Is it a viable strategy to say, you know what, we're not going into the stores anymore because our consumers are online? Is it a share of the pie? You need to decide how much you invest on this side and how much you invest online. What do you think is going on?
So first things first, like I said, this pendulum will swing all the way to the right and then come back to the middle. What does that mean? Will there continue to be brick and mortar? I believe so. Why do I say that? The number one DTC company in the world, Amazon, has physical stores. It is how you engage with those stores that makes it different. So in those stores, you walk in with a trolley. The minute a product enters the trolley, they mark the price and it is billed directly to your account, right? And so we will still have brick and mortar, and brands will still need to show up very strong in those brick and mortar locations. However, DTC can no longer be overlooked. When the Okada ban happened in Lagos, I thought to myself, and then of course the pandemic hit and all of that, I thought to myself, okay, at least certain parts of traffic will be reduced, but no, they didn't go away. What happened? All of them turned into delivery services. There are delivery services everywhere now. Every other bike, or in fact, you have to wait 3 bikes before you see an actual Okada. What you will find now is most of them have, boxes on their backs, and they're delivering things from foodstuff, frozen food, drinks, whatever it is. Now, there will be brands that will go DTC because the pricing can handle some of the delivery costs and all of that, and consumers are willing to pay the 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira. But I don't think any consumer will be willing to pay 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira for a bottle of Coke or for a bar of soap or anything like that. I think there will still be DTC. Excuse me. But what will happen is there will be a hybrid. So we can buy Coke online. Why? We're buying Coke, we're buying Omo, we're buying cheese, we're buying all of those things, but we're ordering from a location and we have all of those things delivered to us. We will find new and interesting ways in which this is going to be done and how brands will show up. There's a story of Tesco in Korea that went from being nothing to being number 2 by taking advantage of a basic human truth of Koreans. Koreans spent a lot of time commuting by train. And so what did they do? They bought the entire wall of the train station, the train platform, and turned it into a store. So you go there, you scan the QR code of things you want and tell them when they should deliver it, and you get home and you can actually track when you're going to get home. You get home and they deliver those things to you. So brands will need to find a way to show up. It may not be out of home anymore, maybe because there are not that many people outside. It would definitely be digital, but even digital is going to become more interesting going forward. I was reading somewhere, I think 2 or 3 days ago, that Instagram is modifying its algorithms such that as a brand, unless you spend money to push something online, all your followers, all your 1 point something million followers will not see what it is that you are posting. So and it's the same thing with influencers. It's the same thing with everybody, that everything that everybody's taking advantage of now is going to change. I mean, for crying out loud, Instagram is owned by Facebook. Facebook did exactly the same thing. It's going to happen with Instagram. I'm sure it's that they haven't figured out how to do it with WhatsApp, but it's going to happen. So ultimately, brands are going to have to find new and interesting ways to connect. Now, going back to the reduction of marketing budgets, especially around physical interaction, human beings are still relational beings. It was fun at the beginning of the pandemic, oh, we're working from home. Who knew we could do this? Commercial real estate is going to suffer, blah, 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 blah. Twitter is saying its staff can work from home forever. I get that, but we're still relational human beings. We still want to come together. Everybody's clamoring to go for one party or the other, and they don't mind wearing triple masks and all of that kind of thing just to be able to go out. But I think there will still be a space for the experiential part of marketing. How it is done, over and above what needs to be done in the rural areas or anything where there is no sort of internet coverage and all of that. How it's going to be done is a longer conversation, but that we will have physical interaction, that's absolutely given. Maybe it will be done through partnerships with people who already have existing crowds or existing communities. Whether it is going to be done through communities, I'm not exactly, we can have that conversation, but whether it is going to happen, absolutely. And things are beginning to open up. People are beginning to go out, relate and discuss, and especially with the vaccine coming through. And so it is very, very obvious that we will return to, like I said, some form of normalcy. How it is done, where it is done, how many people it is done with is now a conversation that we now have to keep having. But for sure, it's going to happen.
All right. So, we talked a bit about marketing budgets. Otome has spoken a bit about that, but I want to come in with you on this budget thing. So Unilever probably has one of the biggest marketing budgets in Nigeria. The portfolio for you guys includes Close Up, Lux Soap, Lifebuoy Soap, Rexona, Vaseline Lotion, Vaseline Petroleum, and more. But we are also seeing the brand sort of say, okay, we don't have money to spend here, or maybe we just need to reduce our overall marketing budget. So with the brands giving you some feedback in regards to that, how are you allotting your budget in comparison to last year, especially when it comes to external agencies versus in-house, and then across the various channels like digital advertising, social marketing, websites, mobile marketing as well? How are you doing that?
I'll tell you what, while I will not give specifics as to what exactly my budgets are or how
no trade secrets, it's all right.
Absolutely. One thing I would say would be that how budgets are split is always, or rather is based on who our target audience is. Each brand, each of our brands, no matter how small, has a different persona. They know who they're speaking to. We have who exactly we're talking to. Some of them, there might be overlaps, but we know exactly who we're talking to. So the answer to your question will depend on who exactly we're talking to, where they are, and what they are doing. Unilever, the process is always guided by market insights, no exceptions, it's market insights. Data, so the emphasis is majorly on using consumer insights, whether it's from market intelligence or actual data, to drive our brand engagement across the media channels. So it's not a whim thing, it's a matter of around what's our job to be done, what are objectives for these brands, what do we need to achieve, where are the consumers, or where's our target audience, where are they, what are they doing, and how can we get to them?
You're making it easy for me, because my next question to Otome was actually on this data, on the insights as well. So let me give you guys data for some of this, a new interesting avenue that has opened up in terms of marketing and advertising in Nigeria, and that's the esports community. So it's grown in the past 5 years. Data from marketing and consumer data website, statiststuff.com, shows that the value of the social online gaming market in Nigeria has grown from $21 million in 2016 to $72 million at the end of 2020. Possibly, of course, we know, pushed up by the fact that people were staying home, but it grew. It is also projected that it will grow to $130 million by the end of 2023. But it's not everybody that seems to be either taking notes of this, paying attention to it, or even deciding to sort of put themselves in this space. So it's just a few brands that seem to have really seen the potential here. So you have Techno, Airtel, Red Bull, the Games Club that is under Airtel. We have MTN with MTN Game World as well. But GameTrade.ng, which is apparently the most popular online store for gamers in Nigeria, does not have a single brand, not one brand advertising on its website. So is it that brands are unaware? Is it that brands are being cautious? Is it that they're deciding that, you know what, this esports community commerce area is not for me? Is it for everybody? Would the money better be spent elsewhere? Because it seems to target a very specific sort of demographic in terms of this esports community. So Tome, what do you think?
Okay, so first things first, that's 70-something million dollars that you talked about. They get some of that money from me. Full disclosure, I am an avid social gamer. So
I was afraid you were going to tell me it was more, because I actually think it might be more because of how the lockdown locked people down and made it possible for them to be so engaged.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree that the gaming community is way larger than that. I have 2 teenage children, one of whom is a Fortnite guru, I would say. And wow. Interestingly, at the beginning of the pandemic, Travis Scott held a concert on Fortnite, which pulled in 12 million viewers. Not 1.2 million, 12 million. So is there an audience? Absolutely. I think media and new media in general is often a bit of a Rubik's Cube for brands, because everybody's just trying to solve it for it to work for them and not wanting to jump in like, oh yeah, we're in here, and not so. So if I split it in two, there are the sort of serious gaming communities, the console gaming, and then of course there's the social on mobile gaming. Now the on mobile gaming is, trust me, it is being jumped on by everybody. Because I play a lot, I see OPay, I see a lot of mostly digital brands, because generally it's harder for sort of physical brands to get onto those kinds of things, because what you want to do is for people to click and join, not just to drive awareness. And so everybody's looking for those who want to drive purely awareness. They are looking for a much larger audience, a much larger bang for their buck. But as we move forward and we start to have more specialized products, the cost of D2C starts to come down. The fulfillment part of the D2C supply chain, which is buying is easy, paying is easy. I think we sorted those things out. It's the fulfillment part that is often difficult. As the fulfillment part becomes easier and it's easier to get your stuff, we will start seeing things like reordering and I know internationally, Amazon has these Internet of Things devices that you can put on your washing machine, and once you click it, they deliver washing liquid to you, and all of those kinds of things. We will get there. I think we will get there, but I think in terms of the gaming community, it's still a bit of a Rubik's Cube. People are still trying to understand, okay, how do I get in here? Is it digital advertising or is it gaming advertising? How do I insert myself into the games? Do I have to go and talk to esports? All of those kinds of things. And I think as that begins to happen, you start seeing even a local game development community begin to grow. There are a couple of people who are getting into the gaming community. I don't have the names off the top of my head, but I have 2 people that I know who are getting into the gaming community and setting up companies specifically focused at gaming. So I think as that becomes less and less of a Rubik's Cube and people start to solve for what works for them, money will start to go in that direction. But I think right now brands are looking for, okay, I have a limited budget. What can I do to garner the most amount of eyes and get into the most amount of minds?
Okay. Okay, so Otome has confessed already. We want to play a game, so he does not need to join us for this game because he's finding his gaming somewhere else. But I want to play a quick game with you, Oge, and it's more about marketing capabilities. So basically, I'm going to name a few things in terms of marketing capabilities, and I want to really know what you think. Are they vital in-house? Are they vital, but you can outsource to an agency? Or do you consider them to be non-essential for now? And Otome, please listen, because I'll ask you about your own ideas in terms of what you think for brands, those things that should be as well. So, okay, I'll start with brand strategy. So do you think that brand strategy should be vital in-house, vital but outsource it to an agency, or it's a non-essential?
So I'll tell you, I think it's a mix. It's a blend. There is no one size fits all when it comes to strategy. So currently we have, I work with a fantastic agency, by the way, and they have the brand strategy on there, but then I'm a strategist myself also. So it's a mix and match. You see what I mean? So the competencies here mix with the competencies there to ensure we get the best value. So it's not black or white. It's a mix.
Okay. So what about market analytics?
The way these questions are going, honestly, I think my answers are going to be the same because it's the same thing. I'll give you an example. So it's just the level of involvement now. While I was at the agency side, of course, I was very much into analytics and data, actually doing the work on software and churning out data. But right now, on this other side, more of what is done in-house is ensuring you read your reports and draw insights from that data that you get. So while you will not be, or rather, while I will not be on top of the data right now, churning out the things, but I'm expected to read, draw out insights, and then feed that into the plan. So I would say it's vital on the agency side, but it's a different set of capabilities that would be required on the other end for the brand.
Okay, I feel like I'll just try one more. Maybe I'll get a choice from you. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I don't know which one to pick. Okay, let's do market research and competitive. No. I think I know what. Digital commerce. Should that be vital in-house, vital but outsourced to agency, or non-essential for now? Digital commerce.
No, it's essential. I would not say it's not essential. And for e-commerce requires a different set of capabilities, in my opinion. Because that's a different stream and it's becoming increasingly important in today's world. So I think in-house it's very good, right? In Unilever, we have a different unit entirely that manages e-commerce. Of course, it comes in and there's a cross-hatching between both functions. However, there's one unit whose function, rather, whose role,
whose core responsibility
exactly is to focus on e-commerce on its own, how we can mine that data, how we can get what we can get, and all of that. So I think it's vital in-house.
Okay, so it's okay. This is the game we'll play with you, but I'll just read them all out because as I hear from her, there's a mix of it. It's just dependent on which side, and that's how you prioritize it. So there's market analytics, marketing operations, digital commerce, market research and competitive insights, strategy, development and planning, brand strategy as well. Vital in-house, vital but outsourced to your agency, non-essential for now. Do you agree with her that it's a mix and just really dependent on how the priorities sort of on either side, whether brand or agency, happen to be?
I will say this. When I started out in marketing, which was a while back, we did everything. The brand manager did everything, market analytics, everything. Now what has happened is that there are specializations, and those specializations have either turned into specific departments within the organization or agencies outside the organization. And I think my philosophy, even before I moved to the agency side, was that an agency is an extension of your marketing team. And as such, I think it's important that your agencies are involved in your strategy.
Absolutely.
Because what you want is the best minds around the table. The idea for, again, I go back to some of the winning campaigns. Top of mind for me is Sherry Coke. The Sherry Coke idea came from a PR agency, not from a creative agency, not from an experiential agency, not from anybody else. It was a PR agency. And all they did was they printed it started from one store, and they just went and did it, and it was like, biting their nails, hoping that it was going to work, and it didn't blow up, right? And it started in Australia. So, which is why I say, and I agree with okay, it's important to have the best minds around the table. It's a mix of departments within, but the one option that is not on the table is the fact that it's not necessary for now. Everything is necessary now.
Necessary.
I figured.
I figured I was going to hear that.
There is nothing now. If you can, if it's that one piece of correlative data that comes from what's happening in store, what's happening online, what's happening from a delivery standpoint, what's happening from e-commerce, you can actually draw the lines and say, yeah, this is what it is. This is what we need to do. The light bulb goes on and you begin to execute, and you have a winning strategy. But if you don't take into consideration all the development of strategy is taking in all the pieces of information and synthesizing what it is that you're going to use to get from point A to point B.
Very true, very true.
So,
all right, so I want to talk about some of the urgency that we saw around 2020 with the pandemic, and how brands had to respond and how agencies had to help their client brands respond. You saw 10 years of e-commerce growth and digital engagement happen in basically 90 days. While we know that many people were negatively affected, there were brands that made absolute double digits in profit because of the products that they had for that time, and consumers needed what they had at that point in time. So from recent client projects, could you just quickly share maybe one interesting case of an engagement that demonstrates this new culture of urgency, of this ability to sort of turn on a dime and change a mindset in some of these companies as they pertain to a rollout of an online campaign or activation since the pandemic, in order to drive home the point of the brand, to drive home what the brand was selling, or how the brand could change your life or help your life in the midst of the pandemic?
You can see from my face that I know exactly what I'm going to talk about, right?
Yes.
So it's interesting. We started working on the Yellow Star project almost a year ago, the year before the pandemic, and we were working on it. And those things they're not easy to put together. So I shout out to the MTN team. They were amazing. It was an iterative process. We just kept refining and we're finally about to start. And it was the internal activation. They had started. We had gotten our finalists and all of that. They had come into Lagos, and boom, Friday the 21st, lockdown. Everything screeched to a halt. And for an organization as large as MTN, kudos to the way in which they were able to literally, as you said, pivot and turn on a dime. And we worked very closely with them to say, okay, how can we get this thing started? How can we get this thing moving? So the first proof of concept was, how do we do the internal activation? 2,000 MTN staff are in different locations. 8 finalists, 4 judges, 1 host, to the extent that I set up the studio in my home. COVID protocols, everything, and it was amazing that we were able to do that at such short notice. And then we rolled it immediately into, how do we get 10,000 people to be able to audition from everywhere? And I mean, we were auditioning people in markets, literally. This boy worked with his mom in the market, and he tried to find as quiet a place as possible in front of his phone, and he was like there, and he was auditioning. Another young lady could only audition, I think about 7 or 8 p.m. at night. She didn't have lights. So she was by her window, put her phone outside the burglary proofing, so that she could use the floodlights from the neighbor's house so that we could see her face. So the ability to pivot and create something that people can actually use and you can use ultimately was absolutely amazing. And I mean, we won 3 Smarties Awards for it, because the team was willing to say, you know what, let's do this. Let's break the mold and let's move forward. And so it's not easy for as they say, elephants to dance, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. All right, so they've told me I have like just 2 minutes left. I really have enjoyed the engagement with this panel. I think it's been fun, and I hope there have been some takeaways. There is a question that I want both of you to answer coming in from Slido. And Anonymous has asked, can we say the new playbook should be leveraging the consumer decision journey in determining when and how we engage, and a higher focus on saliency. Okay, let me start with you. Can we say that the new playbook should be about leveraging the consumer decision journey in determining when and how we engage, and a higher focus on saliency? What do you think?
So I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, the center of it all is always the consumer, always about the consumer. First, that's where it starts and ends, and about anticipating the consumer need even before the consumer knows what they want. Because if you wait for the consumer to tell you, I forgot the saying now, but if you wait for a consumer to tell you, oh, I think I want this, by the time you come up with launching that product, the consumer has moved on from there. So it's about anticipating what the consumer wants to do. By the end of the day, if you know your consumer, at the end of the day, they're human beings. So look at the brand as human also. At this point in time, what do I need? I'll give an example referring to during the pandemic, when everything had to sort of shut down. At Unilever, we couldn't run our regular assets not because we couldn't, but because it was about empathy. At this point, do you really want to start going all about selling, or do you want to add value? Knorr came in and saying, in this time, what you will need would be to boost your immune system. So we would give you recipes, how to add more greens to your food. For Lifebuoy, we actually launched the Lifebuoy sanitizer in that period to say, you know what, at this time you need more sanitizers. Use this product. So that's really what it's about. It's about the consumer, remaining with the consumer, but also, and you know what the consumer wants now, but also anticipating what the consumer wants and getting ready for it.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. The same question finally to you, Otome, very quickly as we wrap up.
Okay. The person was talking about the consumer decision matrix, or how consumers come up with the decisions that they make. I think what we have found is that decision journey is, sadly but fortunately, hackable. And as such, the pandemic has shown us that things can change on a dime, and we must, as Oge said, anticipate what those potential changes would be. So if this is normal life, throw a curveball and see where it lands, right? Throw something into the mix and see how it lands, and say to yourself, the consumer is going to go one of three directions, and anticipate from those three directions, where is that consumer going to land? Ultimately, remembering that the consumer wants something. Once you know what the consumer can potentially want, you have an iPhone on your hands, you have Google on your hands. That's essentially it. So as she said, anticipating, but knowing that you can actually hack that decision matrix to begin to influence the consumer in the way you want them to go, understanding that they are facing a set of current challenges. So Oge talked about using the Knorr platform to get people to become more immune. You need more sanitizer. So it comes also, there's also the longer conversation about purposeful marketing and all of that, and saying this is what we want to be about. And so, like I said, you're able to potentially hack that consumer journey.
All right. I want to say a very big thank you to my panelists. I had a very great conversation. My few takeaways, a lot of them, but let me just quickly narrow it down. Programming, which is still scaring me a little bit, because in this digital age, we're seeing what the tech companies are doing with our data. But again, as you said, now you can hack that. You can hack and anticipate what the consumer wants. Okay, something you said was very powerful to me. Storytelling is the kingmaker. Yesterday, we spoke to Yinka Adebayo on the business show here at News Central, which I host, and he said that content is king and engagement is the queen. So now that's another level there. So storytelling is the kingmaker. The king, therefore, then is the content, and engagement is the queen. Something that Otome kept saying was about the hybrid situation. We may not ever go back to what we knew as normal pre-2020, but there will be a hybrid when it comes to a lot of the marketing situations we find ourselves. And brands need to find a way to show up. And I think that's the emphasis of your lane towards the end as well. Adding value, choosing when to push for profit and when to tell people that we're here for you. Understand, we see you as human, we recognize you as well. So a very big thank you to Tome Oyo, the Director, Client Service and Strategy for EXP Marketing, and as well a very big thank you to Oge Maduagu, the Country Media Lead for Unilever West Africa. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. Again, my name is Tolulope Adelere Balogun. I'm the head of programs at News Central, based here in Lagos for a Pan-African news station. I also host the Business Edge program. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Business Day, thank you as well again for this opportunity. Linda, I'm handing it over back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tolulope. You did an amazing job, I must say. Thank you so much, Oge, and thank you so much, Otome. Your session was extremely very interesting, engaging, and exciting. Now, before I bring on my next moderator, Rosemary, I just want to run through some certain things. I think you did a fantastic job, Tolulope, telling us a few things that, stood out. And for me, I totally agree with the fact that Oge saying that you have to find where your customers are and be there. So you can't decide where you want to be. You have to find out where they are and how to find them and how to strategize to make sure that you're telling them about your products. Some of the key things that were said is the fact that you need to make sure that your brand exposure and advert campaign are consistent. So if you're going to use songs just like Coca-Cola, make sure that those songs are almost like the same with a few things similar. And people, the thing about Coca-Cola, I just found out that everyone just kept mentioning the brand. Their adverts are amazing. They remain with you, and you just keep singing and playing them. Like Tolo, where you said something really, really was true. And then one other thing for me is the fact that storytelling is really key. So you have to know how to tell the story, when and how, and then connect with the people you want to sell to. Of course, there's been loads of changes with the whole COVID and working from home, and then people not really going to the store and the delivery. But then we just have to anticipate change. So the final takeaway for me is the fact that you have to anticipate change. What would your customers want in a year and in 5 years' time? How do you serve them and make sure that they're better? You need to understand that as a brand, that you have to be proactive, right? And you have to think ahead of your customers. Make sure you have something available for them at every point in time. Before I bring on Rosemary, who's going to be our next moderator for panel session 3, which is not the last but not the least for today, because we'll still have the MD come on board towards the end to give a closing remark. I would like to just quickly read Rosemary's profile before I hand over to her, if she doesn't mind. For everyone listening, Rosemary Egabo Afolaya is the head of business development, market strategy, and AMP sales, News Central TV. Rosemary is an experienced business and communications strategist with a demonstrated history of working in banking, oil and gas, media and communications. She is known for her excellent skills in sales, business development, market strategy, and overall corporate strategy. She built her career from a variety of roles within the broadcast media space, banking and advertising, and public relations. She is currently the head of business development and strategy at Africa's leading Pan-Africa platform, News Central. In the past 15 years, she has been part of setting up and making successful 2 very notable TV broadcast media organizations in the Nigerian media space. She's a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing and the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, CIPR, and Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NIPR. Professional with a Bachelor of Science, BSc focused in marketing from Covenant University and a master's degree in media and communications at the School of Media and Communication, Pan-Atlantic University. Please everyone join me in putting hands together as we welcome Rosemary to moderate panel session 3. Rosemary, are you ready?
Oh, sure I am. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can.
Thank you for coming on board.
Yes, good afternoon, Rosemary.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, nice. So
hello, good afternoon, Rosemary.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Very good.
So I've had a brief conversation with everyone on the panel, and I said we're going to have fun during this session. So in this session, we'll be focusing on home is where desire is, the new kids on the block, changing the face of property ownership in Nigeria. But before we go in deep into the conversation, let me just introduce a panelist. I will start by introducing Mr. Adewale Adedeji, who is the General Manager, Marketing Church Group. Wale has close to 2 decades experience in FMCG, marketing communication, and fintech companies. Includes his role in managing Heineken, Nigerian Breweries, Guinness, the Inside Communication Group, Switch Group, and MC McCann and OMD, Media Reach. His experience also covers areas such as brand and corporate communication, innovation development from concept to market, commercial, planning, retail execution, consumer planning, brand sponsorship, asset management, data science, and insight. media planning and digital marketing, amongst others. He has a lot of experience. I mean, from moving from Media Rich, Universal McCann, Insight, Beginners Nigeria, Nigerian Berries, and now at Church Bakery. Please let's welcome Mr. Adewale Adedeji. From there, we'll be moving. Let me introduce you to Mr. Olawale Sholademi, who's the Director of Marketing at Urban Shelter. Olawale is an accomplished marketer and brand strategist with a proven record of innovative marketing and brand strategy in the most unlikely and competitive market terrain. With a background in technology, Olawale has over a period of 10 years leveraged technology in delivery of innovative branding and marketing strategy, and with a unique intuitive business leadership style. He's a graduate of the Federal University of Technology, MENA, and an MBA from Oxford University. Please let's welcome Mr. Olawale Sholademi. And my other speaker is the Managing Director of Max Connection, one of Nigeria's leading experiential agencies in Nigeria. Owolabi Mustafa, fondly known as Musty, is a business development strategist and currently the CEO of Max Connection Limited. He has over 15 years of marketing and communication experience across African markets. Under his management as Max Communication, he has attracted and managed cross-sector companies such as brands and campaigns for Ecobank, Keystone Bank, Skybank, Mastercard, and Lagos. He's the executive director of iFest Africa and the Pan-African Empowering Platform to incubate African talent. Let's welcome Mr. Olabi Mustafa. So let's just get into the session. Now, in recent times, the real estate sector has begun playing a major role in advertising in Nigeria. I mean, you drive all the way from Lagos to Kano to Port Harcourt, and you realize that you look left to right, it is the real estate sector players that play a major role in advertising. You open the pages of the newspapers, you see that the real estate sector are advertising heavily. You go on radio, they're advertising heavily. You go online on social media, they're advertising heavily. I mean, back 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. Most times the real estate people, when they build their houses, you find out that they put the sign in front for sale. It was more of word of mouth advertising, word of mouth, people telling you, oh, I have a property for sale. Now, we want to talk about what has influenced the real estate sector to begin to look towards marketing strategies, to look towards advertising as a strategy to convert sales, as a strategy to sell properties. Let's have that conversation. Now, I'm going to start from the GM Marketing and Communications, Mr. Wale Adedeji. Just tell us, what do you think has influenced the real estate sector to begin to become strategic in terms of marketing?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this distinguished panel, and also warm regards to other members of the panel. Okay, I mean, let me just jump very quickly into the issue that you have raised. I think it's a very interesting question, because what has happened in the real estate sector is akin to what happens when supply within a category reaches a threshold where competition becomes competition escalates at a very, very fast pace. When competition escalates, just like the example I tried to give is like something that is akin to the Industrial Revolution. And marketing has had various eras. The sales era, where as a result of the Industrial Revolution and there is mass production and things became available. What often happens in that kind of scenario is supply to the market reaches a threshold and crosses a threshold where marketing and brand building and differentiation and things like that becomes more critical, because companies need to sell their products, particularly in real estate, that requires significant level of investment. Real estate is such a category where you invest ahead, you invest for a long time, and you invest a lot. It is a category, or it's an industry that is meant only for the guys who have the muscle to be able to push it. Now, having committed that level of investment, and then the landscape becomes more competitive, people also are entering into the sector, given the fact that, and the sector will continue to remain attractive because it is a sector that presents the opportunity for people to hold assets for a long time. And in a market, in an environment that is very unstable, like the Nigerian environment, people want to hold assets for a long time. So it continues to remain competitive. But because the landscape and players also increase and proliferate, it becomes more critical for people to employ the tools and the instruments of marketing communication. So that is what has evolved from that transition that you spoke about, from that era where you just place a signboard over the gate and expect that some people will come and buy. Right now, you want to push, you want to be a bit more aggressive. You want to make sure that you're out there. But then having said that, it's also critical for me to mention that, we will not do marketing communication, the upper segment, the high level premium segment of the market. We are not talking to a mass market. You are talking to people with specific profiles. So when you put up a billboard, you probably will increase the level of media waste that you are going to be, that you will expose your business to, etc., etc. So what I suppose is that most of those who are more aggressive on above the line communication are those who are playing within those sectors where, they are doing programs for people to prorate payment for, small lands for a period of time. And then, you can subscribe to a particular program in order to acquire, medium to low level estate assets. So people like that, it makes sense because you want to communicate to a lot of people. You want to drive awareness. You want to quickly create scale as quickly as possible among those that you believe are your target market that can subscribe to the product offering that you have. So to that extent, it makes a lot of sense for people to do above the line communication. But then when you come to the segment that we play in, most of the time in Churchgate, perhaps high-end segment, above the line probably will serve more to build corporate reputation. Because again, just like I believe, corporate reputation is very critical to buy a real estate product. One of the things that consumers ask for is that who is selling this particular asset you want to sell to me? They want to know which company or which organization. And
let me just cut in at this.
Absolutely.
Let me just cut in at this point. In terms of social media marketing, don't you think it's also necessary for the high-end real estate players to also target the C1 and the C2? Who are the guys that are very, very aspirational?
Again, I go back to what segment of the real estate market can we situate your products? There are products for those C1 people. There are certainly products for them. And, from the top of my head, I can mention some real estate companies and some developers who focus on that particular segment of the market. And so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for people, because of the product that you are selling. There's an alignment between the product, the kind of product, the segment of the product you are selling, and the segment of the consumers that you are also selling to. So to that extent, you could use the appropriate instrument of marketing communication to reach them. And that is my point of view.
Okay, so please, you all have to permit me. I will need to ask him more questions so that he can step out here. Ask us to just ask him more questions so he can step out as he has a very important meeting that he has to attend to. I'm just going to ask you one question. How has ultra high net worth buyers been responding to Churchgate marketing strategies since the pandemic? And how has your team reappraised its marketing strategy in line of the pandemic?
So digital transformation is affecting everything. Just like I often say about COVID-19, what COVID-19 has done is to administer our shock therapy. Shock therapy is, what, psychologists do. They apply, limited or controlled amount of electrical impulses to the brain in order to change the brain chemistry, because you need to change people's behavior and all of that. Look, COVID-19 has done that to everybody. And part of the effect for us is that it has helped us to accelerate our journey to digital transformation. So what we're looking at doing to target those high net worth individuals is for us to go into programmatic. Programmatic enables you on digital. Programmatic enables you to target the right profile of people at the right time, at the right moment, at the right moment of receptivity. Programmatic gives you that capability to drill to that extent. So the kinds of people that, I'm trying to call into the room are people like Cmo and people like Google, because I'm saying that, look, this elusive guy, high profile guy who also wants to be understated. He doesn't want to be right there in the face of the whole public. How do I contact him? And then what sort of content do I shoot at him? How do I get him? And then if I'm able to get him, I create an interface that can enable him to click and then take him to a landing page within my, CRM platform, where I can generate leads, and then I can begin to process the lead from lead generation to customer acquisition. So in other words, I can then track. Digital also gives me the opportunity to track his behavior along the journey, along the purchase journey, in precise term. That someone clicked it and began to fill a form at the back end. It started filling, but it dropped off. I can retarget him. So digital transformation gives us the opportunity to do that in a way that is more precise, in a way that also helps us to save budget, to save cost to a large extent. Because again, you have committed, such an amount of money to put the facilities on the ground. Look, Churchgate is working on a multi-billion naira project at Abuja called World Trade Center. It's just basically replicating the World Trade brand, essentially, that is in several countries in the world, replicating it in Nigeria exactly like that. So there's a World Trade Center project at Abuja, powered by Churchgate. You want to, haven't committed such funds and sunk such funds into the ground. You want to be more precise in your targeting to the right people at the right time. So digital takes priority for me, for instance.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you one last question before I let you go. Now, one of the below the line strategies that I noticed that real estate organizations are not really making use of is the experiential. Now, in countries like Dubai, the US, South Africa, they make use of experiential strategies when it comes to selling high-end properties to attract the high-end users who see it as a lifestyle. There are content ideas like $1 million listing, selling sunsets and amazing interiors on Netflix and on cable. Why do you think that experiential strategy is not one that has been adopted by the real estate sector in Nigeria? And is this something that Churchgate as an organization will be stepping into?
Okay.
Sorry, so just before you start, because I have noticed that in Nigeria, real estate sector, it's all about the wow factor, about the ambience, about how good it looks. But we really do not give the potential buyer the 360-degree experiential experience, if I call it. I want to say that. So what can you say about that?
Okay, so the thing is that Nigeria doing business, particularly real estate business in Nigeria, it's quite interesting. Let me put it that way. Because you need to navigate a lot of things in order for you to deliver, first and foremost, the product. To deliver it, you want to deliver it at such a cost that at the end of the day it is worth your while. And after having done that, I'm just trying to give a background why people have not taken to experiential as much as they need to take to experiential. After having done all that, your priority right now will be that how many people do you want to get to subscribe? How many people do you want to get to buy? So that the drive for activation perhaps becomes more critical than experiential, because it is also important to separate between experiential agencies and activation agencies, because I come from a background of FMCG, and then to a large extent there is a bit of clarity about that too, because experiential is talking about creating high octane experience, sensory experience with the consumer, but activation is seeking to drive retail. It wants to drive commercial objectives, wants to recruit purchase, wants to drive people and give people commercial arguments in order to enable people make the purchase. So that is why, in my view, activation kind of becomes more critical for real estate developers. I'm not telling you that is the norm. Please take note. I'm not telling you that is the right thing, or that is the right way, or there's a right way or the wrong way. I'm just trying to give a context why, experiential has not been taken on as much as it should in Nigeria. People have priorities to push, and it is a business. It is a tough terrain. It is capital intensive. And so when a marketing person brings proposals about how you want to create wow, how you want to create high octane experiences, about premium experiences, the business person is just looking, the MD is just looking at you and is saying that, look, how many square meters have we sold? At the end of this, how many square meters will go? So activation then becomes, that is the reason why activation then becomes more critical, because then in activation, you are talking to agents, you are talking to brokers, you are doing things in order for you to push, you are giving incentives, you are negotiating what will be the margin, what will be the discount that I'm going to give to you, given the fact that you are going to get in X number of customers to make purchase. How do we design, an effective and efficient playbook that will enable us to move the thing very quickly? That, in my view, is the reason why.
I'll have to let you go now. I'll have to, unless you are ready to speak back. And
absolutely. I need to jump into another meeting. Thank you very much, and much regard to all distinguished members of the panel. Look forward to have this conversation at another time. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I'm going to take this conversation about experiential, and I'm going to be asking Mr. Olabi Mustafa, who's the CEO of Max Connection. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the previous panelists. Why do you think that in Nigeria, experiential is not a strategy for sale? Experiential is not a strategy to help the consumer or the potential consumer make a purchase. Why do you think it's not an intentional strategy? It hasn't been able to penetrate into the industry.
Okay, Rosemary, thanks so very much. And thanks to the BusinessDay team. It's been a privilege once again this year. I think there's a need for us to first understand the basis of what experiential or experience marketing, as it were, is. So before we get into some other areas that's deeper. Now, experience marketing has gone beyond your regular face-to-face and, acquisition or driving sales and volume. So if you look at, for example, Max Connection as a business, we have transformed from being just a conventional experiential marketing agency to your business solution agency, where we look across all the marketing services areas, from consumer insights, into customer experience design, into analytics, into digital. So depending on the challenge that a brand is currently having, then, you provide a solution. So if you have an agency partner, for example, that is not able to give you an holistic solution, then I'm not sure you are with the right partner, as it were. Now, getting into the real estate space, if you look at it, I would personally like to start by commending, the guys in that sector in this country, because if you look back from where we started from, of course, the guys that put the board out there, you see them, walking from one street to the other, canvassing and all that. And what has happened now? Of course, digitalization has come. A lot of these guys are everywhere. And of course, Africa is the biggest, one of the biggest investment ever, as a continent. So a lot of investment, even coming to Nigeria, if you look at it. So we're really pushing. But the question is, are we at the place where we're supposed to be? I don't think so. But of course, it's a journey that we've started, and we need to start digging deeper by the day. Now, you mentioned earlier, Rosemary, that if you look at Dubai, if you look at United States, how they use experience marketing, to drive volume, to drive value for brands. And if you also look at global brands like your Coca-Cola that everybody has been mentioning before, I mean, we are quite very happy, to mention that it's one of our biggest clients, and we have done several of experiential activity to bring some of those brands to life. So a lot of things that we look at in the real estate sector in Nigeria, you see that impact and measurement is the stage where we are right now. You go from left to right, you see billboard, you open newspaper and all of that. So now it's time for some of these guys to start looking at, where are we now? Because unlike the global player, they have a way of measuring some of these things. I mean, it's called brand distillation funnel, for example. So if you have brand distillation funnel, you know the right time to do awareness, to reduce awareness, to move to promotion, to leave promotion, to go to sales, from sales, you're building platform, you're building equity, you're growing brand love, etc. But in this part of the world, once we are in the box, most times we are just there. And that's what we see playing out right now. A lot of the real estate players, you see that everybody is just saying, buy me, buy me, buy me, buy, get a discount, we have 20% discount, buy this, without creating any meaningful experience, because the heart of the brand now sits with the consumers. So if you want the consumer to buy your product, then you need to understand what the consumer is facing at that particular point in time, then connect with them, then you can grow brand love. Without you telling that consumer to buy, then of course they will naturally buy you, because there is connection, then of course there is love. And those are some of the things that
at their passion point.
Exactly. So those are some of the things that Experiential is doing now. We're creating compelling stories. We're also ensuring that consumers are also part of these stories. Then you also see sometimes that you look at some of the trend in the space of the consumers, and you're also leveraging on them to actually be at the center of the conversation. So that in the long term, when you're using your data, when you're using your strategy, when you're using your analytics, when you're using your application and all of that, you're using it to appeal to the right set of audience, and you are connecting with them in a way and manner that sits with them, rather than the conventional, way and manner. I'm looking at a future of the real estate business where, I decide to pay for a property, and right from the desk or right from my bedroom, I'm able to look at my phone and see the development of my property, without having to go to that. So a particular have been designed, and I see that, oh, okay, they have done the foundation, it has got, so every day, every week, I can track the progress of my particular property without having to necessarily be there. I'm also looking forward to seeing, an experience where I don't have to see or wait for the property to be ready, but I can actually experience it. I mean, as an agency, we have developed several experiential activity. For example, a case in point, one of our brands, recently we just looked at what can we do to say thank you back to consumer being the number one, or making us the number one, in Lagos and Southwest and all of that. And, we decided to build the world's largest fiberglass bottle, for that brand. And we decided to also engage some consumer to excite them, because those are some of the things that they needed at the time when they've been badly hit by pandemic. So I want to see, more of the real estate guys exploring the opportunities that sit with the real estate, that sit more with the experiential agency. Then, of course, other aspect of marketing is also very critical. But it's just for you to understand, have I passed the stage of awareness? Do I need to do more of radio now? Do I need to do less of this? But of course, when you know the threshold, then you know when to plug in and use experiential, which for me, I think is one of the best way and to drive it.
That basically means understanding your strategy and understanding at what point you need to push a particular strategy forward.
Very correct.
So I'm going to go. Yeah, so let me go to Mr. Olawale. I mean, Urban Shelter is unique among developers in Nigeria because its operation covers the entire spectrum of real estate development, from affordable housing, from the range of about $12,000 to high-end homes for about $750,000, as well as retail and commercial properties. Its presence is also spread nationwide. 2 live projects are currently happening in Abuja, and one in Kaduna, and 2 in Niger State, and 2 in Lagos State. Mr. Olawale, how is marketing of such a diverse property portfolio coordinated from staffing, technology, external sales agents, and external marketing agency points of view? I mean, how do you cope with shuffling high-end, low-end, mid-end, all of that in terms of strategy? How does Urban Shelter cope with that? Mr. Olawale, are you there?
Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Actually, we don't have 2 properties in Abuja. We have 9 going concurrently right now in Abuja. And 2 in Lagos, of course. Yeah, 3 in Kaduna, and then we have hoping to start 1 in the eastern part of the country. Now, our marketing objective is very clear to us from the get-go. That's the first thing. So we understand what we're selling, and then we understand our customers. And what we're selling to us is basically what is our core value. We're selling trust, we're selling credibility, we're selling integrity, we're selling delivery. And this we've done over the past 30 years. And then the most important thing in our marketing strategy is being able to coordinate. That is it. So we have about 4 states going on concurrently, and then we have different classes of projects. Now, the different classes of project actually is tailored towards different classes of customers. So we know exactly what customers for each particular project want and who they are. We know where to reach them. We know where they are. We know how they want to consume their content. So for instance, if you want to plan your marketing strategy, for us, what we do basically, part of what we do is we analyze the target market. When we segment our market, we try to look at how do these people consume their market and their products? How do they want their content to be consumed? So we do that and then decide which of the marketing mix work best for each of these customers. Now, one of the things we do to help us keep our customers engaged is the offerings, which is the value which we offer them. So for instance, if you're talking about real estate, you want to talk about the kind of houses, the type of how you design the house, and then you want to talk about how they are able to pay for it. So one of the things we do is to be able to provide a very flexible payment plan for people. And then we try to find a way to also give them a duration to pay up that money. Now for how we're able to keep them through the pandemic era and then the different products we have. The pandemic, is good to say this, that the pandemic for us didn't catch us unaware because we are already set for it. And why is that? Because before the pandemic, we have invested so much in technology, VMware, part of what you call your experiential marketing, when you don't have to come to our site to be able to have a site visit. That is already done. You can do that on our website. You can go take a virtual tour. We can send you, if you make an inquiry, we can send you a link for you to just go through the site on real-time scenario. And also we're able to put together on our website call to actions to help people quickly communicate with our customers, our agents on the go, and our sales rep. So if you go to our website, for example, you can just send a message and the next sales agent available gets it on WhatsApp or email, and they respond to you immediately. Of course, we have our own internal call center, which helps us to manage all the various calls coming in together at the same time in the office. Then for our agents, right now, we have a network of agents, very, very robust network where we have them on a platform which we update them, synchronize our information, our offerings regularly, so that at any time our agent know what we're selling. They know what price it is, they know what location, and of course we have terms and conditions on how they operate. They know even when an agent is dealing with a client that wants discount, they know who to refer that to, and of course we don't even joke with our agent because they are just our lifeline. We try to invite them for some special meetings to intimate them about our developments. And then we also partner with some PMIs to be able to help us manage the financing options. So if our customers are having financing option difficulties, we introduce them to some mortgage banks to help them, and we help them with documentation and things like that. We do all that. And then we also have a partnership with some marketing agencies, selected ones, of course, because we look at the market, we look at how do we, for example, if we're doing an high-end project, we need to know who can best help us to reach these people. So we tailor up our marketing strategy to use these third-party people to be able to pass our content to them and directly to them. So a couple of other things we will do, and then which management try to put up into our core value principle, because we believe, and Mr. Olabi before he left was talking about the bottom line and then the experiential marketing. Now, we believe that a customer will only keep to you, not just because of the fancy billboard you have. There must be core values that the customer is looking for. So that's why we don't, in Urban Shelter, we don't say we sell houses. We don't sell houses, we sell solutions. So if you check our slogan, our tag phrase on our logos, we say Urban Shelter providing real estate solutions. So we're not selling you houses, we're selling you trust. You can give us your money and you go to rest. We're going to deliver your house. So you can give us, we can show you a 3D of what we will build. And if you come back in 18 months, 12 months, 24 months, you're going to see exactly what we gave you at the beginning of our contract.
I think that's
so that
a
has
major
been,
issue in the
yeah, it is, of course. Yeah, for us, yeah, we are tackling
that's
this
a major
year.
issue in the real estate sector.
Yes, yeah. This comes with a lot of hard work, experience, and then sacrifices, and of course, drive. The management drive to keep in integrity. So, in fact, I was on a train from Abuja to Kano recently, and I was in a coach, and they don't know who I was, but they were just talking, and they're like, "Oh, I want to buy a house in Abuja, but I'm wondering." I was listening to them just behind me, and the guy said, "Oh, lot of fraud around, but if you want to be safe and want to sleep at night, just give your money to Urban Shelter." And that's what we are happy. That's what we're proud to be identified with. So our core values, trust, credibility, delivery has been what is keeping us to keep our customers together with the several projects. We have our 2 projects now in Abuja that we are about moving to site, and we are 90% subscribed on it already.
Let me just step in here. Now, let me take you away a bit from Nigeria. I have noticed that Urban Shelter seems to be interested in diaspora markets. In fact, I read that you actually recruited a manager that takes care of Nigerians that are interested in buying property in Nigeria or that in other countries.
Yeah.
So have you, I mean, what led to that strategy? Have you exhausted the people that are interested in buying properties in Nigeria? Why the diaspora markets?
Okay, now, if you, of course, you would know that the diaspora in Nigeria remits to Nigeria every year, and for last year, about 5.5 billion was remitted to Nigeria, a part of the total gross remittance to Nigeria. In 2019, before the pandemic, it was about 10.9 remitted to Nigeria, and if you compare that with our GDP in 2019, which is about $446 billion. The total GDP in Nigeria, then 10.9% of that amount came from overseas, right? And now that is about 2.4% of the total GDP of this country. Now, 2.4% of GDP of a country coming out from a particular region, you should pay attention to that market. So Urban Shelter, as part of our global strategy, we try to focus on the diaspora and then see how we can leverage on the remittance to Nigeria. So what we do is to, first of all, try to understand the diaspora. Of course, we select some particular countries which we feel there's a high influx of Nigerians and who are willing to come back home or to invest in Nigeria. So the reason why Urban Charter is interested in that market, it is because of the humongous opportunity that sector is giving us. So you can imagine about 10.9 billion coming to a country, which is about 2.4% of our total GDP as a country. You don't want to play with that market. You don't want to do that. So we invest in technology. We invest in physical and digital marketing strategies to be able to get those markets. So basically, the reason why we are so much interested in this is because it is an opportunity you don't want to neglect. Excuse me. Yeah. So, and again, of course, doing business in the diaspora is a different ball game because these people, of course, you know what I mean when I say they have trust issues. They want to be sure. In fact, most from our experience, from our visits to the diaspora, most of them will not even trust their family members to build for them, right? So because of that, we'll say, yeah, of course, you don't want to, you give your uncle or your auntie or somebody money to
and the
build,
money
and number one,
disappears.
The money disappears or you get a very bad product like that. So when we know that, we decide to come up with a plan to the diaspora and an offering. We tell them, do you know what? We're going to give you check out what we're doing. Mr. Oladi just mentioned that earlier too, that he wants to be able to do that. We do that. You can go, once you're a customer with us, you can actually check to see the progress of your houses. Where were they 3 months ago? Okay, can I make alterations in the just so many things I don't talk about here that we need to keep them.
I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back to you on that. So for people listening in, you can go to www.slido.com, SLIDO, slido.com. If you have questions you want to ask, the password is MOM 2021. So you can just go there and then you can just type in your questions. Mr. Wolabi, I'm coming back to you now. So at the beginning of the session, I was talking about how the real estate sector guys have transitioned from the old ways of advertising to the new ways of advertising across online, billboards, social media, print media. And when I mean print media, not just the property guides, even newspaper as well. How do you think, just give an advice, looking high-end real estate people, low-end real estate people, how do you think they should spread their budget across? I know that your budget is being determined by, if it's high-end and low-end. For high-end, just give me an idea of how do you think they should spread this budget across all the platforms? And for low-end, how do you think they should spread this budget across all the platforms?
Okay, Rosemary, thanks once again. I think we need to first look at the companies because you have to take it one at a time. So what a particular low-end or high-end business is doing or the stage where the business is will determine the kind of budget they have to appropriate into their marketing plans. So, of course, two very major broad areas in marketing, of course, is marketing or in business is actually marketing and innovation. So if you look at these two broad areas, marketing and innovation, then you also now look at the stage where the business is at that particular point in time. So a case in point, a business that is at the market entry level stage, which means a business that is new, of course, need to invest so much in their awareness, because they needed to catch the attention of their audience. So you do a lot of outdoor, you do a lot of TVC, you do a lot of radio, you do a lot of digital because of the interaction that comes with it. So you appropriate more at that particular stage of the business into the ATL segment of the business. But as the business grow a little bit older, say 6 months, 1 year, of course, you start putting your investment in the very critical area, which is more of experience, which is experience marketing, innovative tools, like your app design, then customer experience design or user design as it were. Then you also start looking at co-creation and collaboration, so that way, the business is gradually becoming stable. But of course, for the low-end market guys, interestingly, it's majorly more of the awareness that we see all the time, and majorly also very tactical activity. that happen most times. There's this promotion for Salah, there's this promotion for Xmas. There's a need to also look at that part and look at the fundamental architecture of a brand. I mean, a case in point, I think sometimes earlier this year, we were contacted by a real estate business, and they said they were part of one of the events that we had some time ago, and they were quite impressed, and they needed to work with us. And we're asking some fundamental questions about, what's your brand architecture? What are the audience? Where are your reports? Where are the metrics? What analytics do you use? How do you track? How do you use data and all of that to form this kind of activity that you want to do? Because you can't just come and say, oh, you know what? I just need 100 very beautiful ushers, to go to places where we know that, of course, we saw that you guys play very big in this particular segment of the market, and we feel you'll be able to do well for us. But the question was, yes, we appreciate that fact. However, can we understand your brand value? Can we understand the research and the insights that led to this particular activity that you want to do over and above just going to that particular segment? And they said, no, it's just for you to provide, those set of people. And we're very sorry to just tell them that, I mean, it's not being proud, but we will not be able to, take up on a project that we are not part of. Because the success or otherwise of that particular venture, will also affect us. And we don't, as a business, want to have a partner that will not be able to advise. So it's very important to understand and have a very strategic pillars. It's also very important to also know the stage where your brand is. And if you don't know, I also think that you have a lot of very, very good agencies in Nigeria, that can assist. We always tell people that agency partners are more or less like an extension of your office. So, for example, you see a lot of players in the real estate sector having different offices everywhere across all the local government. And you're looking at the bottom line, whether they are checking the bottom line and they are okay. Because you don't really need to have all of this stuff. I mean, look at Uber. Uber don't really even own a car. And they are in everywhere. If you get to Johannesburg today, it pops up on your phone and you use it. So how are they doing it? Yeah. Google is everywhere, So if you look at co-creation, if you look at partnership, so when you work with strategic partners, they look at how do they really want to optimize your value for you. So the same kind of investment that you have, you don't need to spend more. In fact, sometimes you have to spend less when you see very strategic partner who are able to help you to appropriate your resources. So like I said, when you start, of course, you need to spend and invest more in the above the line category. But 6 months, 6 to 12 months, of course, you need to start focusing on engagement, on experience, on meaningful. Then, of course, you also look at digital and tools for the long-term business.
So I'm going to stay with you here. I mean, the whole idea of stage show apartment has become increasingly common in luxury real estate development in Nigeria. But sincerely, decorating a single home or retail space is only a very basic level of experiential engagement for prospective buyers. In your opinion, what kind of immersive experience would you propose to a developer of an upper middle income estate around Lekki Epe Expressway, asking to draw attention and close sales in a crowded market? What experiential strategy would you propose?
So to an high-end player, if I get you right.
Upper middle income estate.
Okay. Okay, so if
on the Lekki Epe axis, asking to draw attention and.
So of course, like I mentioned earlier, Rosemary, you look at categorization. Categorization meaning that you also need to first understand where you play and your audience. So you don't get to, for example, you see a lot of the mass market player having very big billboard in Ikoyi, in Lekki, and you're wondering, why are you wasting this level of
doing that?
Where when you have a lot of your audience in Alimosho, in Ikorodu, and all that, because that's the mass market. If I live in Ikoyi, for example, I'm not sure I want to go and buy a land, in maybe Abeokuta or somewhere. I'm not sure, so I need to focus my investment where my money is, so now that's one. Two, for the high-end guys, I think there's a need to start looking at the kind of, first, I would want to look at the kind of data they have, the kind of analytics they have. And if they don't have, how can we create a user experience design for them? So for me, that's going to be the first task, to create a user interface design, that is going to be appealing to the audience. And where do I have this kind of audience? The high profile places. We know where all these high profile places are. So I don't need to waste my investment, in doing a lot of things to the mass market, because I already know where they are. I mean, I think about a month ago, I went for a meeting at Radsim Blue Ikeja, and I was having a conversation with a friend, and we're talking about real estate, we're talking about investments and all. I said, come, I don't think it should even be about the real estate guys telling me to come and buy, but you should be able to tell me that, come, by the time you are 70 or 80, I'm handing over a key to you that every 3 months, yourself and your family can be going on holiday in Bahamas. So that is peace of mind. So I'm buying peace of mind, and I'm actually not even buying a real estate because I don't need anything for now. I'm comfortable, so I'm looking at an interaction where I can co-create with these guys and, of course, design a user interface activity that sits with them. That's one. Of course, I also want to look at geo-marketing or geo-target marketing, look at what they do, analyze their data. And we have a tool in-house, for example, that we use to do a distillation of every individual. So you give us your name, we distill you properly, and we give you an idea of, okay, this person fits into this, this is the role, this is the profile, this is the career of this person. So we need to place this person in this particular kind of category. So because we have also the distillation of all of the touch points. So for example, I'm going to a lounge or an hotel on the island, I know where I have to go and I know where I will not go because I have a bit of data of most of the high profile places on the island that I need to visit, and I don't need to go to the mainland. So lastly, if you look at the Lekki Ekpe corridor, I also think that the real estate guys in that area, they also need to start looking at what will likely happen within the next 2-3 years once the Lekki port opens. Because by the time that opens, most likely you have a convergence of more trucks coming into that activity or coming into that area, for different kind of activities. So what are the plans? How do you want to reduce interaction? How do you want to reduce visits so that at least some of your prospective clients don't get boxed up because they want to come and visit your site? Because you need to start looking at that and looking at how you want to provide a solution for the future, because that is coming. And
so
we are not sure.
I'm told I have just 5 minutes. So sorry to cut in. I'm told I just have 5 more minutes. This is a very interesting conversation. Besides, I think we need to have a part 2 of this conversation. So let me quickly go to Mr. Olawale. According to Mastercard annual cost of living survey, Abuja rose 17 spots to become the 68th most expensive city to live in. In contrast, Lagos rose 7 places from 25th to 18th position. How is this rising cost affecting the demand in the sector, in the segment of real estate market where urban shelter plays? Is frustration with rent payments driving demand of home ownership in Nigeria?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. First of all, the pandemic last year, at the peak of the pandemic, everybody was forecasting, even Frank Knight was saying there's going to be a dive down in the real estate, the pricing and the buying of real estate. But something happened that which was unexpected, and it's phenomenal. As a matter of fact, CNN tweeted last week and saying that the prices of houses have skyrocketed about 7% in the past months. And that is true. Now, the pandemic was thought to be something that is going to affect the buying and pricing of real estate. But unfortunately, what you see happening or playing out is the fact that it didn't come that way. Of course, there is inflation, there is the devaluation of the naira, and the rental pricing on increase. But somehow, the options people have are limited. What do I mean by that? People want to invest before now in money market or treasury bills and bonds, and now they are no more as profitable as they used to be. You have to look elsewhere. What you go to real estate right now. So the rising cost of living is true, but in that same condition, there is still a high demand for real estate. Of course, a lot of economics play out here, and demand and supply. But something else happened from my own studies in the past couple of months. We found out that in the past, since the COVID-19 pandemic, there is a change in the customer's behavior towards the buying of houses. What customers are doing now are going towards the high-end luxury and neglecting the middle and the lower part. Are you wondering why is that? Of course.
Even in the pandemic period?
Yes, you can confirm this. That's what happened. People were living in Abuja right now. One of the most sought after property are all the high-end products. The middle ones are no more selling. It's a two-way thing. From the developer side, the cost of finishing for a house about 2 years ago for a medium house, right now, further for a luxury house right now, is about the same cost right now for a medium house. So what I mean is that in 2018, what you use to finish a house that is a luxury in the luxury category is about the same amount you're going to use now to finish a house in the middle class. In the past 6 months, there is a general increase on almost every cost of construction, up to 20 to 40% increase. And this has a ripple effect on the cost of construction. Now, as a developer, what would you rather do? Do you want to invest money in building a lower end product, which we call a lesser value in terms of the aesthetics, or would you rather go to the high end where there are enough people who can no more invest their money abroad or who have FX and trying to invest in Nigeria are willing to buy? So basically, it's logical, just a business sense. You either want to consider a luxury product and then where people are willing to buy at the moment. So ironically, people thought that the pandemic, where we also thought that way, the pandemic would crash down the real estate sector, but it didn't. And if you can testify where you are living right now, the price of houses rental did not drop, did it? I don't know, it didn't drop in Abuja. It went on, it didn't drop yet. So in the same way.
In terms of your, okay, sorry, just carry on.
Okay, so now the cost of living is rising, and then living in Abuja central business districts and high areas in Abuja and in Lagos is increasing. The demand, people want more from their houses. People want automation. People want they want infrastructure right now. And for you to have all this in one package to sell, you have to invest more into it, and that are going to shoot up your price and your cost of construction. And if that happens, that becomes the new playing ground for your real estate right now. So while you want to strategize to make sure that you keep on the affordable, the middle, and the high, a particular sector of that is actually in high demand than the others.
I'm so sorry, I'm running for time, and I just need to ask you one more question. I mean, your budget 2020 and 2021, can you do a bit of comparison for me? Is it higher?
Right now, okay, our budget right now, I can't discuss much, but it's rather more focused right now. So we try to avoid media waste, and then we know exactly where our customers are looking up to. Right now, basically, it's actually it's not a brainer. We invest much more right now in digital and experiential because people don't want to come close to your marketers. They don't want to come to the system. They want to come to your site, but they want to see what you have. So our budget is tilting towards something more digital and more experiential. And then we try to now change the way our customers consume. As a matter of fact, we dropped more of our budget on print media to something more digital. So right now, we want to engage our customers to try to get on digital. We have one-on-one interaction with customers and orientate them. Do you know what? We cannot send you flyers anymore. We cannot send you. We want to get you online on your mobile phone. We want to put an app on your phone or something like that. Just get you more comfortable. So our budget has tilted for what it is to be from a holistic approach to a more specific and direct approach in the past couple of months.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I really wish we could continue this conversation because I have so many questions to even ask the MD of Max Connection, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. I want to thank BusinessDay for giving us this opportunity to have these conversations around how the real estate sector is performing in the marketing space. I would have to hand over now to Dr. Ogo Okiti, who is the Managing Director of BusinessDay. My name is Rosemary. I'm the Head of Business Development Market Strategy at New Central. New Central is Africa's foremost Pan-African platform that is telling the untold story about Africa and changing the narrative of how the African continent has been portrayed in the international media space. So I look forward to having this sort of conversation again with the panelists here, and thank you very much and have a blessed day. Dr. Ogokiti, so you're up next. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Rosemary, for that, for moderating that very fascinating and interesting panel. I mean, much more than I had expected, to be honest, this morning from Masters of Marketing. I've just been listening very, very attentively, and I have gained so much insight, knowledge, and understanding of not only the marketing, but of course, the brand space in Nigeria. And of course, what is happening in that space and how it has become very, very dynamic, also using modern tools, you know. So talking about marketing, I mean, listening to AI, listening to technology, how digital is happening. So for me, it's been very fascinating, and I really, really want to thank you and the whole panel that spoke just now. So let me also extend that gratitude to everyone that spoke before, and of course, the fascinating presentation by Mastercard. You know, I thoroughly enjoyed all this. And I really thank you all for your time and for the insight and for the understanding and for the knowledge that you have shared. I also want to thank our audience that have been with us since in the past 4 hours of this very intensive discussion around marketing in Nigeria. I want to thank you for joining us today. And of course, let me also use the opportunity to thank once again our sponsors that partnered with us on this in this event. I mean, there's Mastercard, Desperados by Nigerian Breweries, and of course, Urban Shelter. We thank you all for your support. Also, thank you to our partners, New Central and JC Dicos, for partnering with us in Masters of Marketing 2021. And as most Rosemary said many times in this discussion, this is a discussion that I believe needs to continue. And I really hope that we can continue this conversation, perhaps on the, I mean, of course, we'll move it to the print, to online, and let's continue this. Let's deepen the understanding of what is happening in the marketing space. For the rest of the afternoon, I wish you so well, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your business this afternoon. Thank you all so much for your time and for your insights once again. Thank you all, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Delight was actually started to tell innovative, exciting, and positive food stories out of Lagos, Nigeria.
Being the foremost luxurious goods company in the entire West Africa is a big deal.
Will you have every opportunity? No. But you see, the opportunities you lose on account of your value system, that's your opportunity cost for what you believe, and is the price you must be willing to pay.